Welcome. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMA LOT, and joined by the world's newest father. We got my guy Cody Saptic over there.
I don't think I'm the world's newest father.
Well, closest to new. Closest to new. You know what I mean. No. His name is Cody Saptic. You guys can follow him at CJ Saptic on Twitter. And we are here propping you up for UFC Vegas 62, which is headlined by a women's flyweight bout between Alexa Grasso and Viviane Araujo. The UFC abandoned us last weekend, but we are back for 6 straight weekends of UFC events before we get our next break. But this is a decent appetizer in terms of a full card from an overall perspective, not just the main event. I know people are going to shit on the main event because they probably could have done Brandon Royval and Askarov instead. But from the whole card, just to get fights finally back into our life, I'm okay with this card. But it's obviously an appetizer for UFC 280, which is the big card next week. But Cody, 2 weeks being a father now, we got to know, as MMA fans and viewers of the show, how has it been treating you? Are you getting enough sleep? Is it what you thought it would be? Is it worse? Is it better? How give us your quick thoughts on what it's been like being a father for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so it's basically like fighting Darren Elkins, right? At first, you're just kind of going through the motions, and you're like, yo, this isn't that bad. And then all of a sudden, you're just like, man, my arms feel real heavy. Man, my legs feel so heavy, man. Man, I'm getting so tired. Why am I so tired? It's a slow burn of a grind. And yeah, I mean, listen, some nights you get some okay sleep, but you're waking up at 2 and 5 and 8 and 10 and just hours start to get jumbled all over the place. But whatever, I'm not complaining. As I was telling Paul yesterday, I'm also matchmaking a couple MMA shows. So I'm trying to get a guy's visa done, and I'm trying to get a guy's medicals. And I got Wallel Watson on the card. You remember him? UFC veteran, 4-5, went the distance to TJ Dillashaw. Yeah, I know. He doesn't go by the Gazelle no more. He goes by the Pharaoh. But he used to be Wallel the Gazelle. I don't know what changed.
Okay.
He's actually AJ McKee Jr.'s like BJJ coach. He's one of the coaches at the gym. He corners him for his fights. So he's going to come down and fight. But so much loopholes and shit, man. The guy's got to prove that he can get passed by a neurologist because he's coming off 2 back-to-back TKO losses and in Ontario that warrants an automatic 180-day medical suspension and just so much bullshit, right? So I got a kid. I'm messaging guys at weird hours. I'm getting messages back at weird hours. Grinding. I don't know. It's just like everything. Like work's just been like so hectic in the terms of like I got a million things to do. But I don't know. I feel good. I might be overtired, but as a result, it's like everything's funny and I'm feeling pretty okay.
I love it. And just a quick reminder, when is that show that you have coming up? And it's Toronto, right? I believe it's at Rebel Nightclub, if I'm not mistaken.
It's at Rebel Nightclub. It's on a Thursday, November 17th. Basically, Rebel Nightclub's like super popular spot in the city, and they're like booked pretty solid for a lot of Fridays and Saturdays. I think Future's playing. Not that I don't know who the fuck Future is for the record, but somebody has told me he's playing like 2 days after, I think. So it's a hot spot, and fights are gonna look awesome there. The problem is Unified, which is like Canada's top show, coming to Ontario. Yeah. BTC, which is like Ontario's longest running promotion, having a show in December. PFC, which they're back after the 2-year-long layoff, and a banger of a card that they're putting on.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, now you've got 4 MMA shows running in an 8-week span. Unified's putting guys under contract. BTC's putting guys under contract. What's little Cody going to get remaining to fight? But, I pulled a couple strings. I've pulled out the old Rolodex and called out some people, and I got a good-looking card together. Thing is I'm 35 days out, so I'm just like waiting for someone to call, and I get such bad luck, bro. Guy fails his fucking stress test day. It's like 2 days out, I think. Like, such, you know how it is, bro. Like, expect the unexpected. So, as of right now, I'm just hoping the card holds together because it's like a pretty dope looking show. But again, it's just like you're competing with all these other promotions in the area. It's a lot easier when you're the UFC. You're like, yo, take this fight or don't take this fight. But if you don't take this fight, I'm gonna ice your motherfucking ass. You're not gonna fight all year. So you're like, I might as well take the fight. Whereas, like, we can't do that. It's like, hey, man, you want to fight this guy? They're like, let me take it to BTC and I'll see if they'll offer me more money for an easier guy. And then BTC offers them more money and an easier guy. And they're like, let me take it over to PFC and they'll give me more money than that and an easier guy. Like, bro, it's fucked. It's fucked. And they all know each other and they don't want to fight. So whatever.
It's honestly It's honestly really cool to hear that there is so many MMA promotions in Ontario, because for years and years we've struggled to maintain any sort of hold with regional MMA out here in Ontario. Obviously, we know a lot about that, working with Substance Cage Combat back in the day, Scores Fighting Series and all that. But now to have 4 shows in Toronto in the span of 8 weeks, absolutely amazing. And I'm looking forward to being at the vast majority of those, especially at the one that you're going to be doing. A Thursday night, I really don't mind. Yeah, I mean, I'm down with Thursday night show as well, just to go out there and check it out too. So if anybody's in the Toronto area, you're getting a full serving of MMA over the next several weeks. So make sure you guys go check that out. All right, Cody, let's just actually, you know what? I want to quickly give a shout out to the All-Star. As you guys always see at the beginning of the show, now you guys get the All-Star app. And I had somebody ask me last time around, why doesn't the All-Star put their app on Android? Well, it is on Android, folks. Just search in the Google store, the All-Star, and you'll be able to download it there. The link in the description below, I believe, takes you to the iTunes Apple Store. So you'll be able to get, if you're an iPhone user, you can go right there and download it as well. But it is one of the best apps out there for MMA, especially if you want to stay on top of the news. Personalized notifications, personalizing the entire setup of it as well is pretty much at your fingertips. And trust me, you're going to want to check out the All-Star because they provide great information. And from a betting perspective as well, it's pretty much a one-stop shop for you guys too. So make sure you guys check that out. And then obviously just a quick shout out to CloudBet for dropping props for us on the regular special props here for the Propping You Up show that we'll be talking about throughout the card. You guys can sign up on CloudBet. Link is in the description below. All right, let's not waste any more time. But it seems like best fight odds is bugging out on me. Is it bugging? Oh, wait, there we go. It's finally back up for me. Thank God. First fight of the night, Cody. I can't believe it's going to be the 4th walk to the octagon for Mr. Mike Jackson. He's coming up against Pete Dead Game Rodriguez. In terms of odds, as you would expect, minus 675 on the actual MMA fighter, Pete Rodriguez, and plus 500 the return on the MMA photographer, Mike Jackson. Now, Mike Jackson, we all know how he got his start in the UFC. He was in the CM Punk sweepstakes against Mickey Gall way back in the day. Mickey Gall obviously twisted him up into a pretzel 47 seconds into that fight, got his shot at CM Punk, destroyed CM Punk, and the UFC's like, you know what? We're going to Chicago soon. Let's get our boy CM Punk back in the cage and let's just let him fight the guy that he probably should have fought from the beginning. The guy with not as much jiu-jitsu experience, the guy with not as much, of a chance of beating CM Punk and Mike Jackson. So they give Mike Jackson another call. He comes to the cage and he actually beats CM Punk, puts on a pretty good performance, good striking, takedowns, good enough game to beat a guy that clearly started MMA way too late in his career. Next fight comes in against Dean Barry as a plus 600 underdog and wins that fight the only way he probably could have, by DQ. He gets kicked in the nuts very, very hard and almost loses a nut by his reaction. And then almost gets his eye gouged out, which was a pretty bad eye gouge. I'll give him that. Dean Barry's fingers were right up in his eyeballs there. So I don't blame him for taking that L or saying that he can't compete after that, but he cashes as a plus 600 underdog. Shout out to anybody that was on the conspiracy train that night and actually cashed that as well. But here against Pete Rodriguez, we know what Pete's good at. He's good at getting in there and getting his opponents out of there ASAP. And I think that's probably what's going to end up happening here. I have no need or no interest at all in playing Pete Rodriguez at minus 675 or minus 700, but his round one is at minus 190, and I think that's probably the best way to play this. That's how he gets his guys out of there. He trudges forward, he lands big shots, he gets them out of there. And although Jackson might have a bit of a reach and length advantage in this spot, and he rolls well with shots at times, I just think it's the explosiveness and speed of Pete Rodriguez, which will eventually catch that chin of Jackson and put him down in this fight. So I'm going to go Rodriguez round one, but like anything outside of that from a live betting perspective, I wouldn't mind a little bit of a sprinkle on Jackson should this fight spill into round two, considering we don't know anything about Pete Rodriguez after round one. And as much as we want to joke about Mike Jackson being a photographer and all that, he does Muay Thai as a hobby from what I understand. So he's been doing it for years and years. He has decent enough striking to potentially take advantage of somebody that might have gassed themselves out trying to finish him in round one. It's absolutely possible. But I'm not taking that sprinkle myself at all. I'm just trying to keep an open mind here, Cody. I'm still going to go Rodriguez round one KO. Interested to hear what your thoughts are on this, because the prop that you sent me has me scratch my head a little bit. So please lay it on me. What are your thoughts for this matchup?
Yeah, well, I just thought it was funny. Like, in what world did you ever think he'd be breaking down a UFC fight? And you're like, oh, the guy does Muay Thai as a hobby, so like he's got that. Oh, yeah, this guy might be fucked. Yeah, actually, I sent you over the over 1.5 at plus 200. Yeah. Now, It's plus 200, so I know it's like, to me, it's just a good enough price. And everyone's expecting this to be a quick finish. And listen, it absolutely might be. But keep in mind that Pete Rodriguez doesn't really have that ground game. I think the best way of taking Jackson out would be to take him down and just absolutely destroy him on the ground. But Pete Rodriguez is more of a stand-up. He's going to be aggressive. He might come at him. But you mentioned it with Pete. Like, all of his wins are in the first round, right? All of his amateur wins are basically in the first round. One of them went 50 seconds into the second. Of course, it's an amateur fight. So the first round was 3 minutes long, and then he finished in 50 seconds. It's basically 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Not 5, not a real second round. Everything he does is first round knockout. The one loss that he has, outside of him being submitted, is that decision, right? The fight goes outside of the round. He gasses out. His own ground game, not all that good. As a pro, same thing, 10-second knockout win. 1 minute and 25-second knockout win. Subpar competition for the most part. But yeah, he's got big power, no doubt about it. But if he comes in here against Jackson, is he going to just go out and fight how he always fights? Try to knock him out in the first round? Same thing against Jack Della? Or is he maybe going to try to conserve himself? If he conserves himself, yeah, I feel like Jackson's just going to play to the outside. He's only got a 1-inch reach advantage, but he's got a 5-inch height advantage. He's never been knocked out in his career. We all know his grappling's suspect. But yeah, he's a long-rangey kickboxer. And what he did to CM Punk is what he's going to try to do here. Play a long-rangey kickboxing game where he touches you up with a leg kick from the outside and a jab from the outside and move. Now, if Rodriguez doesn't have great cardio, and he's shown us absolutely nothing to indicate he has good cardio, he has a record very reminiscent of a Louis Koski or his brother Orion Koski. Like, I'm not confident that he's going to be able to fight strong going on to those later rounds. So I feel like Jackson can just be smart in that first and play it super safe, essentially run away, but survive that first, extend the fight. I think he'll be okay. That brings me to point number 2, right? Why was Mike Jackson such a colossal underdog to Dean Barry his last time? Well, motherfucking Dean Barry's a kickboxing standout, and he's fights with Conor McGregor, and wouldn't you know it, he shows almost exclusive first-round knockout wins. He's a first-round guy. Have you ever seen Dean Barry go beyond the first round? No. And as it turns out, he's got shit cardio. Now, he got himself disqualified by eye gouging, not because he needed to eye gouge Mike Jackson, because he was gassing out. He's gassing out, and it was like, man, this fight's not going as easy. The first 3.5 minutes, Mike Jackson just needs to survive, and then once his opponent starts to tire, they start to get desperate. So I honestly think he's just going to try to sprint away that first round, survive the first round. Maybe it ends in the second, but I'm thinking it gets over that half of into the second. So I took the over 1.5 at plus 125 and kind of went against the grain on that one.
Yeah, for literally the first take I'm hearing on the over 1.5, but it could be a sneaky one, especially if Jackson can survive that first round. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But hopefully we don't get to see Jackson after this, because we know it. He's 37 years old. He does MMA as a hobby. He doesn't really have a place on the UFC record,
That's
man.
Fair, but like, click on Pete Rodriguez's.
Well, of course, he doesn't even deserve to be in the UFC. I'm being honest.
That's what I'm saying. Click on his Tapology. You got it up?
Yeah.
You see the picture of him?
Yep.
Look at Dad Bod Rod over here. Like, holy fuck, bro.
Hey, he a thick boy. All
man, right? I went on his Instagram, went on his social media, and like, him off season is big and thick. Now he gets in there and he smashes a bunch of guys in the first round. It's like, that's how he fights. But I'm not entirely sure that he's going to just be able to go. Mike Jackson's as low as level as it gets. I get that. What you have to realize is, as much of an unpopular opinion as this is, Mike Jackson has been on the UFC roster for 6 motherfucking years, dog. That's 6 years he's been on the roster. Bro. You don't think he's learned a thing or two? You don't think he's trained a few times? At least he's got that. Now, when you look at his record, it's like, oh, yeah. Well, wouldn't you know it? He's never been knocked out. So how can you say deliberately that he's straight up chinny? I'm not saying he's not chinny, but I'm saying you don't know that for sure. And I don't know, Pete Rodriguez has been a pro for 2 years, right? His amateur career dates back to 2016, the same year that Mike Jackson signed with the UFC. So, like, yeah, you see it time and time again. This guy's better suited for the Contender Series, right? Where he would have gone on the Contender Series and tried to pull his little I'll smash you in one round trick. And if it worked, it worked. And if it didn't, it didn't. As old Harold Howard once said upon time. I don't know. I could see the kid winning, but at minus 750, the money line, as you mentioned before, it's gone. And then in terms of the popular play is very clearly the under 1.5, the under 1.5. Save that for Jordan Wright, Dusko Todorovic. That's an under 1.5. This is a shit show. This is a greasy ass fight where I could definitely see this over 1.5 working out, because what's Mike Jackson going to do? He's going to go out on his shield and stand and bang? I don't think so, dude. I think he's going to backpedal and move and try to matador the dude that's 5'9". He's 6'2". Play smart, use the teep, use the low leg kicks, move. Stick and move. That's the way to do it. You see guys like Jordan Levitt win fights striking from just stick and move and outpoint the guy. And to that record, Jordan Wright, who's James Krause's guy he beat? Worst fight ever. I just won his next fight in the UFC.
Joseph Holmes? No.
Jordan Levitt was fuck yeah. Sorry.
Trey Ogden.
Trey Ogden, yes, right? So Jordan Levitt beats Trey Ogden in the world's shittiest fight, just standing to the outside and just using these low kicks and evading. Low kicks, evade. Nothing's happening, but the judges are like, oh, one guy's outpointing him, right? Trey Ogden's very next fight, he goes out and does the exact same thing against that Zuber, who's supposed to be like the golden boy. This kid's like a super prospect. And he just stayed to the outside, low kicked and moved. It's not pretty. It's not going to win you fight of the night. It's not going to get you a bonus. It's not going to grow you a whole bunch of fans. But there's an ability to just stay to the outside, hit the guy, and stick and move. Mike Jackson is not a Mike Perry type. He's not a top level guy that's going to stand in the pot. Not saying Perry's a top level guy, but a guy that's gritty, a Jeremy Stevens, a Nate Landwehr. He's not that kind of fighter. He's a hit you with a shot and get the fuck out of dodge. And if he does that, maybe he could win, sure. But beyond that, I think he could hit that over 1.5. That's all I'm worried about. Plus 200, sign me up.
I really don't hate it. I don't hate the Mike Jackson stuff or takes, especially considering the little that we actually know about Pete Rodriguez's game, especially if he's going to get extended, which he could get here. All right, let's get to the next fight here, Cody. We're going to be talking about the Japanese sensation, Tatsuro Tyra, coming in as a minus 245 favorite. He's going up against CJ Vergara, who's a plus 205 underdog. Now, Vergara, no stranger to being an underdog. He's pulled off 2 straight, or actually his last 2 wins, he was a big underdog, or at least a solid underdog in both of them. Obviously, his Contender Series win over Bruno Correa. He was the dog there, ices him in 40-ish seconds with a beautiful body shot, gets his contract to the UFC, takes on Ode Osborne in his UFC debut, where comes up short, but he put up a valiant effort in that third round when he finally actually started to fight. You know what I mean? It seems like those first 2 rounds, you just allowed Ode Osborne to chip away at him from distance, maybe land a couple of takedowns, but it wasn't the most awe-inspiring performance from Osborne either. Then in his next fight, goes out there and beats a hot prospect off the Contender Series as well, in Clayton Rodriguez. I believe it was like a plus 200, plus 250 underdog that night. Really put the pressure on Clayton that night, broke Clayton, forced Clayton to gas out, and he was able to take over the long of that fight when Clayton did have a decent second round where he was able to get top position. But same with Vergara. He found himself in top position in certain spots, landing big shots from on top, but he showed that he really had the dog in him, right? Like, he has a solid striking background. I believe Muay Thai is his foundation, but he's fueling that and powering that with that heart and that durability that he fights with. Now, here he's going up against a much more complete fighter in Tatsuro Tyra compared to Clayton Rodriguez, right? I think this kid is actually a combination of Clayton and Ode Osborne, and the fact that he can strike from the outside with his length and uses kicks very well. His striking still needs some work in a sense, but like in terms of just maintaining his distance and using his length until he eventually closes that distance and gets the fight to the ground. And that's where I think he can do his best work. So I think he's the better jiu-jitsu player than Clayton Rodriguez, so we'll see better control from him on the mat. And then in terms of the striking, I think he can stay safe enough. Even with that pressure style of CJ Vergara, he should just be able to kick him, keep him on the outside, and then maybe even counter one of CJ's combinations with a level change, get that double leg, drag this fight to the ground, or even just get that back, right? He does a good job of something that Nick Maximov, somebody we're going to be talking about very shortly, does very well, which is change levels, go for a double leg. If you don't get the double leg, chain that into getting a back take. And Tatsuro Tyra has one of the best back takes that I've seen from at least regional tape. Let's see if he can continue doing it in the UFC as well. Now, the reason I took Candelario in Tyra's debut is I saw some good things from Candelario from his defensive grappling in prior fights. So I'm like, okay, he can stay in this fight and possibly put it on the kid. But the kid, Tyra, he showcased some very good things in that fight. Great control. Even when he was giving up control, he was able to get it back, or at least do enough on the feet that he could get the fight back to the ground as well. That's what I'm expecting to see here. Vergara, again, has a dog in him, could be live to some people. Personally, I think we're going to see Tyra go out there and do what Tyra does. I'm thinking Tyra by decision is probably the spot that I would go with most here. The line that I'm currently seeing is plus 120 on the decision prop. Maybe if you can get a combination of decision / submission, which I think is absolutely on the table here as well, considering how high level of a jiu-jitsu player Tyra is. But yeah, no upsets tonight or this weekend for CJ Vergara, who has gotten accustomed to that. That's not going to happen this time around. I'm going to go with the Japanese fighter by decision plus 120. What are you thinking here, Cody?
I'm going to take him, and I'm actually going to take him by submission at plus 350.
Okay.
So
I see
very
that.
nice price tag, of course, with Tatsuya Tyra. You already mentioned the guy's got excellent jiu-jitsu. He's got excellent submission game. So I think the submission is definitely live. Now, of course, a whole bunch of these first-round submissions, triangle choke, rear naked, all that good stuff. But you basically nailed it. When he's taking on Carlos Candelario, he's taking on a guy that's a veteran in the game, who's a BJJ black belt, who showed in his Contender Series fight against Ronaldo Candido, who's a high-level BJJ black belt. He's an excellent grappler. So again, I was on Tyra on that fight, but I thought there's no way he subs him. I'd be more inclined to go with the decision prop on that. And you see that he's got an excellent ability to take the back. Same thing with the regional scene. It flows from transition. And with a guy like CJ Vergara, it's not as if he's some D1 All-American that's going to come out here and stuff all the takedowns. It's not like he's somebody that doesn't overextend himself. He's very much like a Gabe Green. He's effective from being that front nose pressure type fighter, but he makes all types of mistakes. And with grapplers like this, same thing with like a Ryan Hall, they have an ability to just capitalize on that one mistake and end up on your back. And once they're on your back, that's pretty much the end of the round. If you can defend the submission, great. If not, they will Aljamain Sterling you or Gunnar Nelson you and just body triangle you, hold the back. Really nothing you can do for the entirety of the round. In Tara's case, he's only 22 years old. So what you saw in his last fight, which is still pretty impressive, I think you're going to see a more comfortable fighter in there. I think you're going to see a more experienced fighter in there. I think you're going to see him get to those same positions, but all of a sudden have a better idea where he wants to go with them. Now, CJ Vergara is really no disrespect to this guy. I think he's tough. I think he's a scrappy type fighter. But I'll never forget, this is going back 4 years. I'll give him that. But he took on Johnny Bedford's prodigy, this Devin Miller. Devin Miller was 19, 20 years old at the time and just absolutely subbed Vergara like nothing. Rear naked choke 58 seconds into the first round, blew right through him. And then I thought Devin Miller was going to be the real deal. Never really panned out. Vergara, meanwhile, he did pan out by being tough and aggressive. But what guys has he taken on since then that really try to exploit that ground game on him? We've seen him get taken down by Ode Osborne. We've seen him get taken down by Kletzen Rodriguez, but they didn't have that same clean jiu-jitsu that if they took him down, they could put him in a bad spot. And if he gets in that bad spot, can he survive? So if this was plus 120 for the submission prop, plus 150 for the submission prop, yeah, maybe I'm inching closer towards maybe a decision. But for plus 350 on a situation that's absolutely live, yeah, I think you go with it.
I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. For some reason, I don't know why it escaped my mind, but plus 350 on that sub prop is actually damn good for sure. Especially considering that we both believe that he's going to have a sizable grappling advantage once this fight actually does hit the mat as well. So yeah, I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I might actually even change that to my favorite prop now that I'm thinking about it, because for some reason I thought it was like plus 150, plus 200, and then just you reminded me now that it's actually plus 350. I really don't mind that.
Yeah, well, if you can go back and check, because I got the same feeling about this that I had Stephanie Eggers last fight against that Eileen Perez, right? She was like plus 350 on the submission. And it was like, well, if she's going to win, which is entirely possible, you would think that logic dictates she's probably going to submit her. She's certainly live to submit her, and I think Tara's the same thing. Sure, he went to decision in his debut, UFC debut, 22-year-old kid, seasoned, tough, defensively sound grappler opponent. CJ Vergara makes mistakes, going to get in bad spots. Is he going to have this kid on his back for 15 minutes and survive? I don't know. He's good at surviving sloppy striking exchanges. He's shown us that. Has he been able to survive in clean grappling matches? No, hasn't really shown you. So unless Tara shows up with bad cardio, I think he's just going to continues to be looking for something and eventually snag something up. So 350, I think you could do a lot worse on some other props.
Bang. I love it. I love it. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We're going to be talking about a women's strawweight bout. This one going down between Piera Rodriguez and Sam Hughes. In terms of odds, we got minus 165 on Rodriguez and plus 140 on Sam Hughes. Now, I'm a big Sam Page fan, right? She's obviously come out and had a couple of very good wins over her last two fights. Obviously, Estela Nunes, she was able to weather that early storm and then come back and really put it on Estela late. And then the Elise Reed fight where she was, I don't know why she was the underdog that night, but she managed to really showcase what people thought Corey McKenna was going to be able to do against Elise Reed, right? I think people just had way too much confidence on McKenna that night, trying to establish a game plan that she wasn't really the greatest at establishing to begin with. But Sam Hughes is pretty good at that if she's able to have that grappling advantage over opponents, which is what she had that night against Elise Reed. So she shows great things, good striking, good cardio, good pace, good wrestling. All of that is great. But now that she's fighting a girl like Piera Rodriguez, who likely has the striking advantage in this fight and has the wrestling to compete with a girl like Sam Hughes and seems to have the cardio to be there as well, the full 15 minutes, I think that this is going to be a tougher out for Sam Hughes than most people are expecting it to be. I'm seeing that chalk come in on the I'm seeing that the steam come in on the Sam Hughes side. I believe she was like plus 160, plus 170 earlier this week. A lot of money coming in on her, bringing Piera Rodriguez down. I'm waiting for that money line to keep moving because roughly around minus 150 is likely when I'll take a shot on Piera Rodriguez because I ultimately think she is the better all-around fighter here. Sure, she gave up the first round to Kay Hansen, but she was able to make the adjustments that she needed to, and she came back in the second and third rounds and pretty much took over that fight. Sam Hughes, solid fighter. Again, don't get me wrong. I love the work that she's putting in with Fortis MMA. I'm a big Fortis guy. Cody, we've been doing shows for almost 2 years now, and you always hear me jerking off Fortis MMA. But this is one of those spots where I think that the fighters specifically, she might be a little bit underskilled based on the opponent that she's going up against here, and Piera Rodriguez. So as most women MMA fights, we expect to go the full 15 minutes. Fight goes to decision here is minus 280. No surprise. But I think no matter who you end up taking here, you take them by decision, and that's probably the best line that you're going to end up getting. So with Rodriguez, plus 110, plus 120-ish on her to win by decision. I just think she's the better fighter overall here, Cody. What are you thinking?
Yeah, honestly, I took the chalk as well. I got minus 275 fight goes the distance, but I think it's going to be a grappling heavy match where both of them will have some success and other spots where it's just lying flat on your back, but not a whole lot of ground and pound, not a whole lot of submission attempts. Whereas Sam Hughes has really been able to turn up the pressure in her last couple of fights. Estela Nunes was kicking her ass,
yeah,
and then just like flat gassed out. Her coaches at between rounds are like trying to motivate her, like to not quit on herself, like Leon Edwards type shit. Like, come on, man, you got to get back in this. And then Nunes completely gasses out. With Elise Reed, very clean performance, but almost the same thing. Got a couple takedowns, and it looked like Elise Reed just got deflated in that second round, and then to let her have it. So how much of that is her ground game is really going to the next level, and she's got this finishing ability, and how much of that is she's capitalized on a couple opponents getting tired? Piera Rodriguez, she's got good cardio. I'm not particularly worried about that. As you mentioned, lost the first round against Kay Hansen, and then really did win the battle of attrition in that spot. So I think they're both durable. I think they both have good cardio. I think they'll both try to exchange takedowns. They'll both try to exchange some strikes. I'm leaning towards Piera Rodriguez, but in both scenarios, this fight very likely is going to decision. Now with Sam Hughes, she's tried to add that wrestling wrinkle to her game, but keep in mind, prior to that, she was known not really for her grappling abilities, right? To me, I don't know that she's turned enough of a corner to go out there and utilize that game plan, but it is the proper game plan. Kay Hansen took down Piera Rodriguez in the first. Rodriguez is flat off her back, man. Doesn't show much of a get-up game. Doesn't have many sweeps or submissions. If you can complete takedowns on 2 of the 3 rounds, you can definitely ground her out and win. But I feel like this is a girl that's in the gym continuously with Vanessa Demopoulos and Mackenzie Dern and other great grapplers. She's really working on the grappling, really working on the takedown defense. And if she can keep this fight standing, taking away nothing from Sam Hughes, I just feel like Rodriguez might just hustle her up ever so slightly and get the job done. So, again, books are books, right? I got a slightly better price on fight goes the distance. I got a slightly worse price on that Piera Rodriguez by decision, which is sitting about minus 125. So again, shop it around if you can get a better price on it. But I just think if you want to play this one safe, it's a closely contested fight. If you're on Team Sam Hughes, you might have a live underdog here. If you're on Piera Rodriguez, you could win. You could win for sure, but it's going to be greasy, right? It's going to be a tight decision. Why not just take that decision? And so nobody wants to be the guy taking a minus 250, a minus 260, a minus 270. I get it.
Sometimes you got to.
Yeah, bro. Why not parlay it with something else and just, add some juice? Like, that's what I'm going. I just don't see the finish on either side here.
Cloudbet prop for this matchup. I'll pose this question to you, Cody. Most takedowns. Who lands the most takedowns? Piera Rodriguez at minus 160, Sam Hughes at plus 135.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I guess I'd be leaning towards Sam Hughes, who I think could get a takedown. I don't know that it'll be short-lived, and I don't know if she'll be able to continuously do it, but I just feel like she's spending so much time on her wrestling. Her last 2 fights, I mean, she's really done a good job of having good cardio, good pace, and just using that grind and that grappling. Piera Rodriguez will do the same thing. To me, I wish there was the option. Is it more takedowns for Piera? Is it more takedowns for Sam Hughes? Or will they have the same amount of takedowns? And I would hit that. And I think they get one each. Yeah, I think they get 1 each. Maybe they get 2 each. If Piera Rodriguez ends up on her back, I think she'll probably be held down for a minute or 2 at the very least. If Sam Hughes gets taken down, I think Hughes just bounces back up. Like, you're going to have to continuously grind on her over and over. But I think both girls got the cardio to do it. So the only thing that I could see in my mind possibly screwing me was, who the hell thought Tisha Torres was ever going to finish somebody in the UFC? And Sam Hughes was in the corner and everyone was just like, yeah, let's get out of here, Bob. So, like, that one really screwed me. And if
I
it
gotta
was
go inside the distance to get it to cash. I love it.
Yeah, bro, who had Tisha Torres inside the distance in that fight? Show me the ticket, man. Nobody.
That's funny. I remember they made a mistake on like the over 1.5 or something, and everybody hit the over 1.5, and everybody ripped up their ticket for obvious reasons.
Well, it was like Tisha was just styling on her, but it was like, okay, well, you know, at least Tisha doesn't got no stopping power, but she just took so many shots. There was like a mild cut, and everyone's kind of just like, yeah, let's just call it a day.
Yeah, we're in the UFC, baby.
Yeah, and after that, I was like, Sam Hughes will never reach that level. Even in LFA, it's like she's looking solid against Vanessa Demopoulos and then just blows it, right? So,
yeah.
You know, is this a fighter that's going to turn the corner? And a 2-fight winning streak's impressive. She's looked better than ever. That last fight against Elise Reed was the best she's ever looked. And maybe that's a continuation of where she's at. However, you got to play devil's advocate sometimes. And it's like, dude, Estela Nunez was fucking kicking her ass. Did I mention that already? And then the other thing, it's like, okay, well, Elise Reed has absolutely no grappling. So going out and getting some takedowns against her is not, you know, it's not unfathomable, where this is a much better spot where Piera Rodriguez improving. She just got her debut out of the way. I thought she looked good on Contender Series. She's making strides to her overall game. And let's not forget, this is a good-looking, undefeated prospect that the UFC is looking to build up properly. I don't think that Sam Hughes is too much too soon. I think she does get the job done. I wish I got a better price on the Rodriguez decision prop. I didn't, so I decided to just cower it out, take the safe play, which is fight goes the distance.
There you guys go. All right, let's get this next fight underway. And it's somewhat of a short notice fight. Joanderson Burrito taking on short notice debutant Lucas Alexander. Odds just dropped a couple days ago, and we're currently getting minus 360 on Joanderson Burrito and plus 295 on Lucas Alexander. I actually finished taping this maybe an hour, 2 hours ago, and I completely understand why the odds are where they are. Joanderson Burrito, actually not even talking about this fight specifically, but just in general, whenever there is a short notice debutant, you have to expect that if it's the UFC veteran and he's above average, more than likely you're going to get a chalk price on him. And that's exactly what it is here as well, right? Joanderson Burrito, I'd call him above average UFC talent. And he's taking on a guy here in Lucas Alexander, a Fusion XL product down there in Florida with other guys like Rodolfo Vieira, formerly Jacare Souza, formerly Mike Perry, formerly Alex Nicholson.
Oh yeah, Nicholson's still there. They're all still
exactly.
there.
Some I think Hannah Goldie is there as well too. I think Jillian Robertson used to be there too. Yeah, but he is like one of those middling Brazilian guys that like moved from Brazil to Fusion that were just looking to eke their way into the UFC and beating Jacob Kilburn, although via injury. He kicked his arm so hard, I believe it broke the wrist of Jacob Kilburn. That earned him a contract into the UFC. Now here he is taking, well, not just a contract, but a short notice spot here against Joanderson Burrito. Seems like a lengthy striker, likes to use his kicks a lot, has a nasty calf kick as well, which he's been able to immobilize a lot of his opponents with. But it just seems that the explosive, fast twitch nature of Joanderson Burrito's game is just going to catch up to Lucas Alexander here, where he's going to be able to put that power on him and put his lights out as well. So I wanted to look for an angle to take that Lucas Alexander spot. The only way I can really come to a conclusion that he could win is if he can stay conscious long enough to actually batter that lead leg of Joanderson Burrito and then start to take over with his Muay Thai. Because the striking is not that bad. I'll give him that. His striking is there. But where he falters is when guys can put pressure on him and guys can get him to the ground and control him. And I think that Burrito can do absolutely both of those things. And I think he can do those things to the extent of possibly finding a finish in this matchup as well. So Burrito inside the distance, currently sitting around minus 165, I see it as. I'm never really a big fan of taking minus money on those specific type product or those props, but this seems like a spot where Burrito should be able to cash that. So give me Burrito inside the distance. I think this Alexander kid might be one of those guys that goes like 1-3 in the UFC and then just ends up getting cut. Doesn't seem like he's going to have much staying power at the big show. But in terms of a bet, Burrito inside the distance, minus 165. Cody, did you see anything else on tape here on Lucas that makes you think otherwise, or is this another Burrito shellacking incoming?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dog. So, like, I don't know what his real amateur record was. Obviously, Tapology just has one amateur fight there, and it was a loss. And then he starts off his career 2-2. And then at that point, he takes a full year off and then shows up in Florida. And it's been money ever since he's been in Florida. He fights low-level guys, and he's been beating them. But one has to imagine that how much of this is record building and building him back up, and how much of this is he's legitimately good to go, talented. Now, bear with me on this one, right? Shows up to his first fight in America. You have your Tapology up, right? So you check out the weight. So Jeremiah Fernandez, what does he weigh for that fight?
He missed weight for that one.
Right. 146.8. Now check what he weighed against Carlos Guerrera.
There we go. 146.8.
Now check out what he weighed against Ty Johnson.
146.8. Ooh.
Now he's taking this fight on short notice from Melsik Begdasarian, right? So as far as I'm concerned, home dog ain't making weight. I wish there was a prop available. Will he make weight on his first attempt? It generally comes in about, like, it's worrisome when you're 146.8 because you're getting close, but you can't quite make it. You're bailing out. Maybe you're not mentally strong enough. Maybe your body's not agreeing with it. But it's not as if they're bringing him in to fight at 155 because it's short notice. They're bringing him in at 145 pounds. I'm not entirely sure that he's going to come in here and make the weight. I think he'll have a rough weight cut. And you have a rough weight cut against Joannis Burrito, it's not going to go good for you. This is a huge talent jump. It's your UFC debut. It's relatively short notice. This guy's an absolute killer, just coming off a win over Andre Fili, which by KO, that's a pretty big win when you think about it. But like you're saying, maybe the calf kick, maybe that's the path to victory. I think Burrito could catch him with someone standing. I think Burrito just take his ass down. Burrito's real aggressive and backs guys up towards the cage and shoots his takedowns off the cage. Whereas when you look at tape on Almeida, he tends to Lucas Alexander, he typically tends to back himself up to the cage, and that's where he's getting taken down. So I think Burrito's sheer aggressiveness, which if you've seen a Burrito fight, dude is extremely aggressive. I think that'll just break through onto the other side and get the job done. I don't mind what you're saying, that Burrito inside the distance. A minus 160, a little bit thick for my blood too.
Yeah.
And I know I hate doing this because I think the fight maybe is inside the distance, but I like the over 1.5, which is a good plus money price. Officially on my book, I believe
over plus 100.
I'm getting a plus 105 on Bovada. All the same, doesn't matter. Whatever book you're with, hopefully the All-Star, hopefully the guys from CloudBet, hopefully sign up with the good guys, maybe get a better price. But in terms of like the actual market, you're looking at about that even money, plus 100, plus 110, anything in there. I would say that that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Burrito will be aggressive and try to back this kid up, but the kid's UFC debut, he's wily. He's going to be big for the weight class. Unless he has a real bad weight cut on Friday and looks toast, then I'm leaning towards he at least survives that over 1.5 and then gets taken out at some point in the second or the third. Burrito coming off a big win over Fili in 46 seconds. People are like, oh, damn, this thing ain't going to go long. Possibly, but don't let that be a recency bias for you. Like, there are littler guys. Almeida's been submitted twice. Sorry, I keep calling him Almeida. His name is Lucas Alexander.
Yeah, I get it. Lucas Almeida. Like, all these Brazilian names, like, it just
Brazilian. Both of his pro losses, which dating back to those fights in Brazil, are both by submission. Hasn't been knocked out, so I have no reason to believe that he's got a suspect chin. But weigh-ins for me are going to be crucial. So Burrito's the kind of guy that I like his money line at minus 400. How crazy does that sound? I feel like he's one of the better guys this week. In terms of a direct prop for this fight, you could go with that inside the distance. Feels a little chalky. The over 1.5 to me felt a little better. So that's what I went with personally. But listen, this will be a banger of a fight. Maybe you can just crack a beer, enjoy some popcorn, and just enjoy the festivities because it'll be a good one.
Over 1.5 on CloudBet, sitting at plus 112. So getting a little extra bit here.
Baby,
link is in the description below. All right, let's get to the next fight here. Very interested to hear your thoughts on this one, Cody. We got a middleweight bout between Nick Maximov and Jacob Malkoon. In terms of odds, we now have minus there was some steam on Malkoon. We got minus 125 on Maximov, plus 105 the return on Malkoon. Now, I remember earlier this week that Malkoon was closer to like plus 130, plus 135, and a ton of money coming in on him here, making it closer to a 50-50 fight. And that's exactly what I expect this fight to be, a 50-50 fight, which is why I didn't mind the underdog money on Jacob Malkoon, especially at that plus 130 range when you could have gotten it there. I expect this, everybody always expects, two grapplers going up against each other. We're going to get a striking battle. But based on how much these guys depend on grappling to get their dubs, I'm fully expecting them to be tangled up, to be scrambling, to have a lot of those instances where either guy is trying to get that top position, whether it's to get a finish or whether it's just to grind them out, right? I'm expecting it from both guys. I feel like Malkoon is just slightly more aggressive, especially with the stand-up, which, again, neither guy has a great advantage in terms of the stand-up or the striking here by any means. But I think it's just the aggressiveness and it's the being in your face at all times style of Malkoon, which could give him the advantage here of just being the slightly more aggressive fighter, maybe look better for the judges too. And especially if he can land those takedowns and get that top time, that will obviously help him as well. But Nick Maximov is a tough out as well when it comes to the grappling realm. People are kind of just going to discard him now because he got subbed by Andre Petroski in the first minute of his fight. But let's not forget that Petroski is a high-level jiu-jitsu player as well. So, like, we can't just throw away Nick Maximov because of that. But when it comes down to it, if this fight does go the full 15 minutes, I'm fully expecting it to be back and forth. I'm fully expecting it to be 50-50. So give me the underdog in the spot for that case. And I already do lean Malkoon because of the spots that I outlined already, which is his aggressiveness with the striking, staying in your face, looking for takedowns, even looking to just pressure you on the striking to push you back to the cage and then get to his takedowns from there. He has sneaky inside trips and throws that he does from there, where Nick Maximov is more of a conventional wrestler from what I've been seeing. The double legs, and I spoke about it in that Tyra breakdown as well, where he goes for a double leg, looks for the back take, and then from there up against the cage, either looks to trip his opponents, hop on the back of his opponents, whatever it is. They both want to get it to the grappling room, but I think Malkoon will be slightly more successful with doing that here. So give me Malkoon. I do think this fight will go the full 20 or 15 minutes as well. The fight goes to decision minus 250 makes sense. So just like the Piera Rodriguez fight, maybe taking either person by decision is probably the best way to get your value here. I'm gonna go Malkoon by decision, which I saw closer to plus 200 earlier this week. Now I'm seeing lines anywhere between plus 165 and plus 190, which I still don't mind either. So give me Malkoon via decision. What are you thinking here? Are you going Nick Diaz Army here, or do you think that the down under can pull it off here?
Yeah, we're going with the Robert Whitaker Army on this one.
RBA, baby.
In the battle of two guys that wouldn't be on the UFC roster if it wasn't for their famous friend.
Hey, let's say this, Cody. Let's say this, though. This is better than Marcos Mariano, Chris Avila. This is a step up. These guys, I think they deserve a spot on the roster. But you are right, though. Based on their affiliations with other more famous fighters, that's why they are in the UFC. I think they are more deserving, though, than past examples of that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And sometimes I'm a little harsh on these guys. But, Maximov, they're like, yo, BJJ Black Belt, Cesar Gracie this, what, yeah. 209. I was like, man, I used to watch this guy's Submission Underground all the time. Joe Baez submitted him. Aaron Teague submitted him. Tanner Wiseman beat him in overtime. Gustavo Pierce submitted him. Right, he's a black belt, sure. It's not like he's a world champion black belt. He's like super upper echelon. And then the weird thing to me with Jacob Malkoon was I used to tell people like, yo, BJJ black belt. He had competed on like the ADCC Oceania, I think, and like done fairly okay for himself. Robert Whitaker's jiu-jitsu coach. So like all that stuff sounds good. And then it turns out like I was lying, bro. He wasn't even a black belt. I don't know why Robert Whitaker's coach wouldn't be a black belt, considering he was the UFC champion at the time. But Malkoon was like a brown belt and a guy that hasn't wrestled super high levels. Striking is really not all that good. He was young. He was only like 24 years old. I didn't quite get it. But I will give this guy something. He's freakishly strong. And so you'll notice in all of his fights, he just out-muscles guys that are otherwise quite strong. Listen, Abdullah Razak Al-Hassan, you seen how that guy's built? He's so jacked. And he's also judo black belt. Taking him down, you can do it. But taking him down 8 times and just ragdolling him at will, impressive. AJ Dobson, dog. Have you seen AJ Dobson? Straight up. Super, super strong. And a guy that's really worked hard on strength and conditioning. At one point was like trained to be a power lifter out of Ohio. And it's the same thing, Malkoon with the 6 takedowns. The Brendan Allen fight was awful. Some people actually did give it to Jacob Malkoon, and you can't fault those people because it's a very close fight that maybe Malkoon should have won. But 7 takedowns is still quite impressive. Now, Maximov's getting takedowns as well. He's in the same boat. He accrues a whole bunch of takedowns. And he's taking down decent guys like Cody Brunridge, Poliana Soriano, like some decent enough wrestlers in his own right. But to me, it's like Malkoon's just a lot stronger. He's going to be stronger in the clinch. If this becomes a straight-up grappling match, I figure like he's going to be the one that's going to be getting the takedowns and ending up on top. If it's a striking battle, I mean, I think you give the edge to him, but I wouldn't feel good about it. Like, is he going to outstrike Maximov over 15? Like, who wants to watch that? But Maximov's volume, it's like non-existent, man. He's throwing a punch to get to the clinch. Whereas like Malkoon's obviously worked a few combinations. He's got a few punches in his arsenal. I feel like he does win the striking battle. I feel like he wins the fight if it goes to the ground. But this is very similar to, you kind of mentioned it yourself earlier, the Pierre Rodriguez fight against Sam Hughes. It's going to decision, baby. This thing is going to decision. I don't see Malkoon submitting him. Malkoon has never submitted an opponent in MMA. Not in any of his fights. He fought as an amateur too. Pretty sure he never submitted an opponent there. And for Nick Maximov, yeah, good jiu-jitsu guy, but I just don't see him catching it in the other side. So with no submission, neither guy throw a whole lot of strikes, neither guy have a whole lot of power. This thing's going to be a straight-up grappling match. And you've seen in almost all of their fights, they're just straight-up grappling matches. So this is good matchmaking in terms of let's just throw them both in there against each other and see which one's the real one and which one's going to have to go back to the wayside. But I feel like Malkoon's got a little more upside, has shown a little bit more, should get the job done. Minus 240, fight goes the distance. I'm going with that. But I got to make a pick. Jacob Malkoon is the pick, and the Malkoon by decision prop, it's plus money. So why not have a little whiff of that if you want to be dangerous?
Bang. I love it, Cody. I love that we're on the same dog here, especially in a fight like this. It seems to be the fight that's most talked about on Twitter, honestly, this week. But it seems like a lot of love coming in on Malkoon, especially with this line moving the way that it is. All right, let's get to this next fight here. We got the legend. I guess we can call him a legend, a veteran for sure, though. Rafael Assuncao going up against Victor Henry. In terms of odds, we got minus 390 now on Victor Henry, plus 320 on Rafael Assuncao. Now, intriguing thing here is the fact that Victor Henry made his UFC debut as a big underdog as well. As most people remember, Raoni Barcelos was a huge favorite in that fight, and it just didn't even look like Raoni Barcelos showed up to fight that night, or it could have been just that pressure and volume and output style of Victor Henry, which was allowing him to get ahead of Barcelos that night. Now, I remember watching that fight back for the tape studying purposes, and good God, was the commentary team so low on Victor Henry in that first round, just talking about all the good things that Barcelos was doing. But Henry was remaining very competitive in that first round and then started to take over in the second and third rounds by just, again, being more active, getting to the punch. And Raoni Barcelos seemed to be staring more than he was actually fighting, and that ultimately led to his demise in that fight. Here against Rafael Assuncao is really starting to fall off a cliff, it seems, right? He's 0-4 in his last 4 fights. He's gotten finished in 3 of those as well. Before this 4-fight run, he had only been finished once in the UFC prior to that. So maybe his 40-year-old age is really starting to catch up to him now, and guys are going to be able to get him out of there. But Victor Henry, not the biggest puncher. Like, he's been able to finish guys on the regional scene, and he's accrued a wealth of experience on the regional scene as well from all corners of the world. I think that he has enough volume and pressure here to cause Assuncao some issues. Assuncao has been, the victim of low output at times. That could possibly put him too far back in this fight, especially against a guy like Victor Henry, who's going to be bringing it from the jump. Now, although Rafael Assuncao is 40 years old, it's not like Victor Henry is any spring chicken either. This guy's 35 years old as well. Like, he is definitely closer to his prime and his peak than Rafael Assuncao is, which is why he should be the no-brainer pick here, right? Minus 400 almost makes sense. But the best way you want to try to extract value is tuning into this show, right? Propping you up. We want to prop you up here to get you a better price on a minus 400 underdog. And I think me and Cody are going to agree on this one with Henry by decision, plus 120. I think that's the best way to play this. Assuncao, not much of a finisher nowadays. I'd be surprised if he clips, and hurts Henry with anything that he can. Even if he decides to go out there and take the approach that Victor Henry's last opponent that beat him took, which is grappling, Denis Levetrenev, or whatever the fuck his name is. I'm sure I nailed his name.
That guy's a badass, man.
He's a badass.
Really
but
good.
The way he won was by taking Henry down and grinding him out. Even if Assuncao wants to take that path, I just don't think at 40 years old he can fuel that type of game plan at this point. So I'm taking Henry. Henry by decision plus 120 is probably the best way to extract as much value as possible out of Henry in the spot, but he should cruise throughout this fight and win without too many issues. What are you thinking here, Cody? Like, I know you agree with me. I'll say that. But what's your thought process in terms of this one?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Henry comes from that catch-as-catch-can wrestling background, a guy that spent a lot of time in California with guys like Josh Barnett. He can wrestle. And when you saw part of the reason why he beat Rowdy Barcelos is Barcelos is a dope-ass wrestler, 7-time member of the Brazilian national team in freestyle. Like, he's a very good wrestler. He went 1 for 7 on takedowns against Victor Henry, who basically just stuffed him out and had a whole lot of success on his feet. I find it's interesting that you mentioned to start off the breakdowns, like he made it look like Rowdy Barcelos just wasn't there to fight. And you're right. It looked like Rowdy just didn't look like himself. He just didn't really show up. And Rowdy landed 134 significant strikes that night. And it seemed like he didn't do anything.
Right.
That's how much Henry just outpaced him and outworked him at every turn. Yes, he's 34 years old, but he's fought very high-level guys overseas in Japan. He's very well experienced. I feel like he's still fresh in his own ways, hasn't taken a whole lot of damage, and he still got something to show. So I think this should be a good enough coming out party for him. Rafael Assuncao, you mentioned, is he a legend? He is a legendary gatekeeper, and that him and Clay Guida are the only two guys I can really think of that they have wins over they both have wins over 2 world champions. Clay Guida beat Rafael dos Anjos and Anthony Pettis, and yet Clay Guida never fought for a title himself. Rafael Assuncao's got wins over TJ Dillashaw and Aljamain Sterling, former champions, and a current champion, and yet he himself has never actually fought for a UFC title. They're excellent gatekeepers. They fight all the best guys, but at some point you start to get long in the tooth. And in Assuncao's case, major ankle surgery, a little bit older, fights one time a year, if that, and his numbers are just criminally low, all of his fights. Paul Shaughnessy and I talked about this yesterday because he had a book that, while Prize Picks is offering like over under 70 significant strikes landed by Victor Henry. So very interesting because the guy just landed 184 or something. That's an easy over, right? Easy over. But holy shit, dude, wouldn't you know it? Rafael Assuncao, he's between the UFC and the WEC. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. He's got 22 fights between the UFC and the WEC, and the most he's ever been hit in a fight was 64 significant strikes. It was the highest he's ever been hit in 22 fights between the UFC and the WEC.
That's
holy
crazy.
shit. He does not get hit, this guy. Everything's chest to chest. Everything is close range, or you knock him out. Lately, he's been getting knocked out. But in both scenarios, you're not racking up huge numbers against him, where that's what I'm expecting Victor Henry to do, is rack up huge numbers against him. So I'm a little bit worried that Assuncao is going to be in the clinch the entire time. I'm a little bit worried about those things, but he's not who he used to be. And with Henry, it's like if you throw up half the numbers that you did in your last fight, you should be able to cruise. I think you'll be able to stuff the takedowns. I think you'll be able to dictate and manage the outside for the most part. But I got enough respect for Rafael Assuncao to say his style is still good enough to survive. Now, the guy had been knocked out once in his entire career, and then Cody Garbrandt knocks him out, and then Ricky Simón knocks him out. So is the chin going? Perhaps. But I think because of that is why we're going to be able to get a Henry decision prop that's plus money, because Henry is going to look, oh, wow, everyone's knocking him out. It's like, everyone's knocking him out? I don't know, man. Cody Garbrandt's pretty tough. For the record, Assuncao won the first round against Cody Garbrandt, got knocked out in the second, and Ricky Simón thrashed him, and is not really known for his knockout power either, but all the same, put one hell of a pace on him. So maybe Victor does the same thing, puts one hell of a pace on him, but Ricky's wrestling so good, you're not coming nowhere near him. Whereas Henry's wrestling is good, but Assuncao and him should be able to be in clinch type positions up against the cage, which is going to stall, which is going to kill time off the clock. Hopefully Henry separates, lands a few combinations, back to the clinch, out hustles him, outworks him, wins that decision, plus 125, plus 120, depending on the book. I got Victor Henry by decision.
I like it. And CloudBet is actually offering a similar prop to what you said from Prize Picks. What did you say Prize Picks was?
70.
70. So CloudBet actually has Victor Henry significant strikes over under 66.5 at minus 110.
That's a much better line, because that would make Victor Henry the most he hit Assuncao more than anybody, right? 66.5. But at least it's feasible. 64 is the previous record, 66.5. Henry throws a whole lot of volume. Okay, for sure you can get behind that. But I think to me, it felt like a trap. Like, oh, dude, his last fight, he landed so many strikes. He's going to do that again. It's like, we've seen that before. We've seen guys put up over 100 in one fight, and then in the next fight throw absolutely nothing, right? It does sometimes happen depending on the style. And I don't know, were you hurt coming into this fight? Like, I noticed that's a repetitive theme now. All these guys are banged up coming into their fight. So you never really know what you're going to get, as opposed to tape study and whatnot. right?
Yeah, but Victor Henry, not a bad way to splash into the UFC by beating a guy like Barcelos, and now taking on another legend of the Zuffa era in Rafael Assuncao. Like, he is right in the thick of 135 pounds. Should he pick up another win here as well?
Well, I agree 100%. And the way I was looking at it, I've been touting this for years now, but 135 pounds is bar none the best weight class in the entire sport, right? Like, they've got just the most guys that on any given night could come out there and win a world championship. Of course, Aljamain Sterling's talented, but you got Peter Yan, TJ Dillashaw, Corey Sandhagen, Merab Dvalishvili's the 5th best guy. Chito Vera is the 6th best guy. Rob Font on any given night would light you up with over 120 significant strikes. He's 8. Song Yadong, that kid is extremely talented, very bright future. 9. Ricky Simone, stud. Sean O'Malley, I don't care for. He's not even in the top 10. Saeed Nurmagomedov is ranked 13th.
Crazy.
A guy like Adrian Yanez, not quite there yet, but he's a fringe top 15 contender, right? Umar Nurmagomedov is outside of top 15 in the world.
Crazy.
Yeah, right. Cody Stamen, Casey Kenny, Rowney Barcelos.
Saeed Yokob Kakramanov. That guy's looking like he's going to be legit too.
If he can make the weight, we'll see. But yeah, it's so talent rich. That Cody Garbrandt's a guy that held the title, and like, he better go to 25 and stay at 25 because he's not a top 10 guy in the world right now. No disrespect to him. All respect to the guys at 135 pounds. So if you're Victor Henry, you're 34 years old, you don't need to fight a couple guys with no name. You got to make a splash. Right, and do you fight a top 10 guy right off the get-go? No, because you don't have a name yet. But you go and you beat Rafael Assuncao. Why? Because everybody else in the division that's ranked between 5 and 10, what do they all have in common? Well, they all fight Rafael Assuncao. He's that guy for the organization. Victor's just got to go there and get the win over that guy to be one of these people that get into the conversation. But yeah, Chris Gutierrez, if Frankie wants another go around, I know he's actually fighting Chris Gutierrez, but someone like that, Victor Henry versus Frankie Edgar, sign him the fuck up, right? But he needs to take someone that's got a big name to get him, okay, people are talking about him, people know who he is, and then he might be able to jump in and take on one of these higher ranked contenders. But the guy's actually been good for a very long time. He's got wins over 3 UFC veterans before he even stepped in foot with the organization, and like 4 guys that have been previously ranked number 1 guys in Japan. So very talented. We just haven't really heard about him because of where he's been fighting. The casual, not even casual fan, the average fan has not heard of this guy. Minus 400. I think he goes out there and wins this fight. Assuncao dangerous in his ways, but he's being brought in because of the name attachment. So got to go with Henry, and then I would take Henry by decision. But the more we talk about it, it's like, damn, dude, if he does actually go out there and show out, is Assuncao just going to sit there and take the drubbing? Like, I don't know, probably not. But I got faith that Assuncao's a savvy enough veteran to just slow this thing down and survive to a decision loss.
That was kind of my take going into the Simone and Assuncao fight. I'm like, Simone's a grapple fucker, right? Like, he's just going to go out there and just take this guy to the ground and starches him in round 2. So I'm hoping, just like you, that Henry will be a little bit easy on the legend here and just take a decision victory, but we'll see how it goes. All right, let's get to this next fight here. It is the prelim headliner, and it could be a banger should it play out that way. We got a bantamweight bout between Martinez and Brandon Davis. In terms of odds, we got minus 150 on Munda Martinez and plus 130 the return on Brandon Davis. Now, Brandon made his return to the UFC last time around by getting starched by Dana Batgiril in 2 minutes. It seemed like the first punch that Batgiril landed on him, Brandon Davis wanted out. It didn't even seem like he was in that fight to begin with. I expected that fight to be close if Davis was able to get the fight to the ground, but it didn't even seem like he could get close to a takedown as Batgiril was really putting that pressure on him right off the jump. Now, Brandon Davis, we can look and pick apart his initial run in the UFC and be like, okay, maybe he just ran into some tough opponents, right? His last 3 losses, Giga Chikadze, Kyung Ho Kang, and Zabit Magomedsharipov. Now, those first 2 losses I spoke about, Giga and Kyung Ho Kang, he lost those by split decision. And it was the Giga one that eventually got him out of the UFC. The Zabit fight, he wasn't doing all too bad in the early going there, and then Zabit started taking him to the ground, eventually knee barring him in that second round. And then it was the 2 losses before that. Enrique Barzola, grinder, obviously put him through the ringer there. And then Kyle Bochniak, doing Kyle Bochniak shit, just moving forward and outslugging Brandon Davis. But Brandon picked up, the win over Steven Peterson, which is not a bad win at all, or a bad win at all. It survives the early onslaught of Randy Costa, finishes him in the second round, as is with almost any Randy Costa fight. But then it was obviously that Giga Chikadze fight that got him out of the UFC. But he picked up 4 wins takedowns on the regional scene for Gulf Coast MMA, and then got his return to the UFC. Decent, scrappy fighter. I believe his best work can be done on the ground if he can get his opponents there. And that's what he'll likely have to do here against a guy like Manda Martinez, who will definitely be putting the pressure on him in the stand-up realm. I think that Martinez is the heavier striker. I think he's the better technical striker. And if he can bring the same kind of viciousness and ferocity that Danaa Bakkeril brought into the cage, I think he could really light up Brandon Davis and touch him up. Even if he doesn't finish him in the first round, I think he can withstand that for the full 15 minutes and just beat on him for that length of time and win the fight by decision as well. Now, Manda used to be the guy that I looked at for violence bets, right? I used to be like, just look at his record. The guy either finishes or goes late, gasses out, and either loses or he gets finished himself. But I think the last two fights, even though he split them, he's gone 1-1 in his last two fights. He showcased that he can go 15 minutes if he needs to. He's dispelled the rumors that his cardio is absolutely dog shit. Like, he can go out there and still do good work in round 3. So I think that violence type of moniker that I put on him now can kind of be taken away, and we can actually expect a decent showing from him over 15 minutes should he go there. I think that's what's going to happen here. I think he's just going to put the pressure on Davis, land the better strikes. I think he'll be able to stop the takedowns, and he should be able to beat on Brandon Davis. Maybe get a later finish, maybe a round 2, round 3 finish, as I did list my favorite prop in this matchup as Martinez by KO, but a later KO, like I said, that is currently sitting at plus 215. Not a bad line, honestly, for a guy that has as much power as Martinez does, and me considering as much of a striking advantage as he should have in this matchup. Davis needs to get this fight to the ground, in my opinion. He might be able to stay competitive for a little bit, but as the power starts to land on Martinez, I think we'll see Davis start to break. Last thing I'll say about this matchup as well, in terms of Brandon Davis, he could get the takedowns. Like, it's plausible, because Manda Martinez was getting taken down with some, Ronnie Lawrence is a great pressure wrestler, but in terms of his technical wrestling, it's not really there, in my opinion, right? It's just, I'm going to overwhelm you with pressure and I'll eventually keep getting you down. And some of these takedowns that Ronnie was landing, I'm like, it looks like he's not even trying. He just mowed him over and he was able to get him down. So if Brandon can get the fight to the ground with a little bit more of an intelligent takedown approach, he's absolutely live. And he could possibly even pull off a submission later in this fight. But for some reason, I still come back to the thing that Manda will likely keep this in his realm, in the stand-up realm, outstrike him, and I think he'll be able to touch him up and win this fight. So give me Martinez by KO, maybe round 2, round 3. Just not the most confidence. But what about you, Cody? You think Davis has more of a shot than I'm giving him?
If I hadn't seen the Bakkeril fight, I would think Davis is absolutely live. The worry here, though, is I don't think he quit when he got hit. That's not my thinking at all. I'm thinking he got fucked up as soon as he got hit. And it was like, is his chin compromised? Because he's a junkyard dog scrapper, right? And you can't be that kind of fighter, that forward pressure grinder, if you can't take a punch. Everything Bakkeril threw stunned him, right? And 2 knockdowns, eventually knocked out. Yeah, that I don't like. But if he can get his pressure on, if he can get his grind going, like, I think I don't necessarily mind him. Keep in mind, this one's a little more theory than anything else. But if you're Brandon Davis, okay, you come to the UFC, you lose to Kyle Bochniak in your debut. Again, like you said, Bochniak was pretty decent at the time, forward pressure guy. Sure. The Steven Peterson fight, man, he shows out in that. He landed 112, I believe it was. Let me just bring that up. 114 significant strikes landing against Steven Peterson. When he was against Austin Arnett in the Contender Series, 134 significant strikes. So you see the guy's got tons of volume. He can make it a scrap. He's got good cardio. Enrique Barzola is dope, right? Was a solid talent. Won the Ultimate Fighter Latin America. Was a factor in the UFC's division. He's a factor in the Bellator division now. Zabit Magomed Sharapov, bro, people were talking about him being a title contender. He's high level. Mr. Perfect, Kyung Ho Kang, savvy veteran of the game, very solid. Kika Chikatz, was thought to be a top 5, top 10 contender there for a little bit. And he took him down 3 times. He's fought a really good level. Maybe just hasn't gotten over the hump. But you see, as soon as he gets released, 4-fight winning streak on the regional scene, is looking himself, and then the Bakkeril fight. So if you look at the timestamp on this, right, his last fight against Josh Huber is 8 weeks before his fight with Dana Bakkeril, right? So he would have not gotten the fight call until at least 8 weeks, which would be considered a full camp. Only Dana Bakkeril, he was supposed to fight Montel Jackson a month before that fight took place, which means that Brandon Davis never got contacted till Bakkeril, Montel Jackson fell apart, and then they would have just hit him up and been like, Do you want to fill in the spot? And that's what he did. I don't think he would have been in good shape. I bet you he had a shit weight cut. I bet you he wasn't in the gym as much as he needed to be because he had just fought a few weeks earlier. And it was reflective of a poor performance. But what we know he's capable of doing at his best is over 100 significant strikes, lots of pace, lots of action, and he can mix in the takedowns. And I think both of those things are very effective weapons against Manny Martinez, because the two flaws with Manny Martinez is, one, he's showing a 12% takedown defense, not known to have good wrestling. Yes, the Ronnie Lawrence fight is a big issue with that, but even back on the Contender Series against Draco Rodriguez, gives up an easy takedown almost right away to him. I would say he's still got takedown defense issues. The other problem is he's got volume issues. You watch all of his fights, it's like he's hesitant. He doesn't let his hands go. He's got killer power, especially in his left hand, but I would say in both hands, big power in both hands. But guys like that eventually fall in love with I'm just going to clip this guy, that they stop throwing combinations. Manny Martinez doesn't throw as much as I'd like. You could make the argument, well, dude, the Ronnie Lawrence fight, he looked fresh in the third round. You know why that is? Because he had landed 9 significant strikes through the first 10 minutes of that fight. He didn't do shit. Yeah, well, okay, he was good in the third round. There was nothing going on. Davis should be able to, I think, throw the superior volume, stay in his face, mix in a few takedowns, cause him to work, and just get that grind going. But what I need is a good training camp, a good weight cut, and a much better version of Brandon Davis than we've seen the last time out. Now, Manny Martinez is tough. He's durable. I think Davis is going to have to give him that 3-round grind. And so pun play, a little bit of salt on it. I actually went with Davis by decision plus 300.
I honestly, I don't hate that breakdown of it either. Like, this honestly feels like a Fury UFC main event. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like something they'll throw down in Texas. But no, I could definitely see the live dog aspect here on the Brandon Davis side, as Manny Martinez still really working out his game, especially with the new training camp after, since his original coach had passed away. I believe that was last year, but we'll see if he can come back and get this dub here for his guys. All right, let's get to the main card now. A reminder that this card actually takes place 4 p.m. Eastern, or the prelims this weekend. So don't get caught napping for that one. So make sure you guys check that out. Also, just a quick shout out to the 100 live viewers that we have with us right now as well. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below. Let the All-Star know that you guys enjoy us over there. And also check out their beautiful app that they got for you guys as well. I'm just going to run a quick ad for you guys as well. It's 20 seconds. Just check it out. I was so close to just playing my my Yanni gift that I got from the last event, and just because I want to, it's 7 seconds. Just one of my favorite moments of the Contender Series this past season. Check it out.
That's a problem. Finish this.
Attaboy.
Finish this. Like, best moment of the Contender Series this year.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Mark Zuckerberg probably said that exact same line last 2 weeks ago when he was in the Apex. He was like,
yeah, exactly. Yes. Blood, or he does the fucking thumbs down.
Yeah, the best I seen was they were like, man, Zuckerberg's into violence. Like, I get suspended on Facebook for putting things up. And it's like, yeah, that's a great point, man. Like, I didn't realize this guy was with it. Kind of cool. I know people are hating on him, but like, bro, capitalism, who gives a fuck? Like, that's how it works. If you haven't accepted this at some point, you're a communist. And if you're a communist, you're still welcome to check out the show. You know, I'm friends with everybody, but yeah, whatever. He wants to rent out the Apex and have a fat party. Like, you ever watch that, like, My Sweet 16? It's like, honey, I got P. Diddy coming. And they're like, I told you I don't like P. Diddy. It's like, oh my God, bitch. What is he saying?
Well, I spent $2 million on this. You better get out there and enjoy yourself.
Bro, sometimes you watch that stuff to have a good laugh, and it just gives you, like, reassurance. Like, I grew up with this kid, good kid, had more money than, like, anything. And he's so miserable now as a full-grown man, and like, he still has everything, bro. He still has everything, but just like, I think his brain was just oversaturated with serotonin, because it's like, we're just having fun all the fucking time, bro. Like, I don't know. I feel bad for the kid, to be honest with you, but yeah, like, riches is not everything. I seeing that stuff, so he's like, oh my God. But
I completely can see what you're talking about in terms of like getting all that excitement so early in your career that nothing really excites you anymore. Then you got to start venturing off into like other shit. Like
Hey, they're
things
doing
might get
drugs,
shaky.
bro. That's what happens, man. You're doing drugs because you're like, I got nothing to do on Tuesday, so might as well have a good time. And yeah, you're whack. But unless you own like a multi-billion-dollar, social media company, you probably do have something to do on Tuesday. I assure you, it's something that probably needs to be done.
Probably. All right, let's get back on track here, Cody. We got, I believe it's only a 5-fight main card, according to Tapology, which, outside of a pay-per-view, I can't recall the last time a fight night only had 5 fights on its main card, but is what it is. 8 p.m. start time for the main card. First fight on the main card, fellow Canadian of ours, Misha Sirkanov, going back up to 205 pounds. He's coming in as a plus 175 underdog. He's going up against Alonzo Menifield, minus 205 on Zoe there. So this is one of those fights where like it could look like a quick shit kicking that Sirkanov just gets blasted right off the bat, and his durability is truly gone and we can't rely on him any further, or Sirkanov can get that wrestling going and, really have success of his own, because we know this, Cody, even though he got submitted in his last fight via armbar, the guy is a jiu-jitsu wizard. Like he just got caught that night by Wellington Turman, but he is a strong wrestler. He has some great jiu-jitsu, and should this fight hit the mat, similar to how Big Willie was able to get to the mat, Devin Clark got it to the mat, although won some 10 attempts, if I'm not mistaken. But if Sirkanov can get it to the ground, he is much more, well-versed in the jiu-jitsu realm compared to the Thick Willies and the Devin Clarks of the world. So I really do think that Sirkanov is a live underdog in this spot. This is one of those spots where you have to open your mind up a little bit more rather than just thinking that Alonzo Benefield is going to go in there and just starch him. Because if he doesn't, we saw what OSP was able to do to Alonzo Benefield. He was able to wear him out and then eventually finish him as well. We've seen what Devin Clark, even only landing one takedown, was able to get a win over Alonzo Menifield. Menifield relies a lot on that early finishing success. He has won, the Mozarov fight by, ground and pound, but really, are we going to call that a fight considering all the bullshit that was coming out about Mozarov surrounding that fight? And then even the Fabio Sharon fight, he gets a fucking Von Prue in that fight. And again, Sharon, not really UFC level either. So I think Zoe, although he showed some good things in terms of his jiu-jitsu from on top, it is going to be the complete opposite when he has his back on the mat here. And I think that Sirkanov could absolutely wrap him up into a pretzel in the spot if he can get it there and survive that early onslaught. So I love me some Menifield here, Cody, man. I love even the Sirkanov by submission prop, which is now sitting at plus 330. I think it's absolutely live. We've known Misha for a long time, right? We've known him from his regional days. We know how good this guy can be, especially when he can get fights to the ground. And although he might be nearing the twilight of his career, like more so on the back end of his career, he should still be able to go out there and beat a guy like Alonzo Menifield as long as his durability holds up. And that's a lot of betting. You're hoping that some guys that if they can keep their durability, they should be good to go. Nate Landwehr several weeks ago, right? If he can keep his durability against a guy like David Onama, he likely wins this fight. This is a similar situation with Sirkanov. If he can get this fight to the ground to there early enough and not eat a big shot from Zoe, he should be able to win this fight, whether it's with control or find a submission. I think he ends up getting the back of Zoe and ends up finding that rear naked choke. So give me plus 330 on Sirkanov by submission, but even him as a straight up dog play at plus 175, I think you're getting great value on that as well. So let's go with the Latvian Canadian Misha Sirkanov. What are you thinking here, Cody?
Yeah, listen, I think he's live as well. I think he could go out there and pull it off. Again, he's got the submission game, and I don't think Alonzo Menifield is really all that good off of his back. So if he gets him there, yeah, he might be able to move to mount. He might be able to grab an arm. He might be able to grab something. You've seen in the Jimmy Crute fight a Peruvian necktie. But going back to that Jimmy Crute fight, he's inches away from getting stopped and TKO'd and pulls off a Peruvian necktie. And that's my biggest beef with him is like, don't know how much he really wants it. Now, getting knocked unconscious is one thing, but all of his losses are like pretty quick. He was a jiu-jitsu ace when he lost to Roy Boughton by armbar in Warrior 1. He was a jiu-jitsu ace when he lost to Tech Johnson by heel hook in like 15 seconds. Volkan Ozdemir knocks him out in 28 seconds. Glover Teixeira, dude, did black belt versus black belt. No, Glover smoked him. It was like black belt versus purple belt, bro. Glover Teixeira. But 245 in the first round. Mounts him and just pounds him out. TKO. Johnny Walker, 36 seconds. Ryan Spann, 1 minute and 11. He can take a punch. He doesn't particularly deal well with adversity. So the worry is that a guy like Alonzo Menifield, if he does come at him aggressively, probably makes it happen. Going back to the Devin Clark fight, 1 for 10, and what Clark had to do was cling on to him for 10 minutes, and that one takedown, it came in the 3rd round. And as soon as he took him down, that was it. Menifield couldn't get back up. But the first 3 minutes of that fight is Menifield smashing Clark, swells his eye shut, nails him with a big old uppercut. Clark had to face some adversity. Sirkanov's not going to come out of that adversity particularly well. So I think he can win. He gets this fight to the ground, he should be able to. He had Jocko in some decent spots. He had Wellington Turman in some decent spots. Those guys are both middleweights, man. He's coming back up to 205. If he grabs a hold of Alonzo Menifield and realizes, damn, homeboy's pretty strong. He's at a 4-7 man as well. One of your favorite camps, improving. They've got a big, they're trying to work on the wrestling. If he keeps the fight standing and lands a couple shots, Misha may topple over. I don't hate the Misha underdog play whatsoever. If you're going to play it, the Misha by submission play is the way to go. But again, if you really want to be smart on this one, the ones that I like the most is straight up. If you want to take the coward's way, under 2.5 at -250. This thing ain't going over 2.5 rounds, man. If you want to be a little bolder, the fight does not complete 2 full rounds. -185. If you want to straight up just take the under 1.5, it's about at -125, -120, depending on the book. But in both scenarios, if Menifield gets taken down, he getting subbed. I don't think this is going to go a whole lot if he gets taken down. If he doesn't get taken down, Misha's not going to take those punches, man. He's just not going to do it. So I got a feeling this one's going to be straight up violence. It's not going to last a whole lot. I think it could get out of the first, maybe, probably ends in the first, might get out of the first. But if it does, some's getting finished in the second early because they just don't have great cardio either. They're both first-round guys. The times that they get extended, usually not great for them. Misha, in 2 fights ago against Jocko fights at a very slowish pace, right? So at 185, yeah, he made it through, but he was completely gassed in that fight. And then the Wellington Turman fight, was that armbar from guard, which you never see in men's MMA anymore, was the armbar that good, or is Misha Sirkanov straight up gassed and on top of him? Because I urge you to watch the fight. After the first round, he slumps on his stool and starts huffing and puffing. The second round starts, he grabs him and takes him down and then fucking quits. Part of me is like, Misha's a 1-round guy. He can win this fight in 1 round. If he doesn't, he's in trouble. So I'm going to take all those things, and I'm also going to have a look on the Menifield live line. Because very similar to the Wellington Turman fight, which I hit live, if Misha wins the first round, big deal. He needs to finish you in the first round. If he doesn't, tide's going to start to turn. Menifield can pull this one off. So I am just going to take the violence on this one. The under 1.5, the under 2.5. The fight doesn't start round 3. And I'm going to look to maybe hit a Menifield live. But I'm not faulting anybody taking that Sirkanov spot. I'm not faulting anybody going for that Sirkanov submission. Could happen. Most definitely could happen. But the safe way of playing this one is the unders, because it doesn't matter who gets the job done. Someone's getting the job done.
I'll also say this. I'm glad that Sirkanov is actually going back up to 205 pounds as well. That 185-pound cut looked rough for him to do.
It did.
He's a big dude.
Yeah, but keep in mind this. Volkan knocks him out senseless, right? Glover knocks him out. Johnny Walker knocks him out. Ryan Spann knocks him out. So as a fighter and as a lost fighter who's now just been knocked out 4 times in the UFC, it's like, oh, man, what can I do to change things? It's like, let's go to 85. Let's go to 85. Now, Jocko hasn't even finished a sandwich, let alone a human being in an octagon, right? So, yeah, I'm not surprised he went the distance with Chris Jocko. And then Wellington Turman, interesting, because Wellington Turman subs him early in the second round. And had he not subbed him and he just gotten back up to his feet, he probably would have TKO'd him. He probably would have finished him in some other way. It seemed to me like Misha didn't just make one mistake. It seemed to me like Misha was tired, and that caused him to make that mistake. How else is one of the best BJJ black belts on the roster, right? One of the most technical savvy guy. How does a guy like that make a mistake? Well, I'll tell you. The same way Rodolfo Vieira made a mistake. You're completely gassed out. You're like, whatever. You give it up. That's what I think happened. So I'm worried about Misha pulling that, which is why I'm having a look at the live betting opportunity here if it makes it outside of the first round. But there is a big discrepancy here on the ground. So if Misha takes him down early, gets on top of him early, they're still dry, and he's got some energy. Yeah, it's entirely possible that this guy grabs a hold of something. People forget his early run. Not that they're good guys, but the submission win over Alex Nicholson, he just breaks his jaw like nothing. It's a face crank. He's like, snap, there goes your jaw. Ion Kudalaba, submits him with a nice little arm triangle choke. And then Nikita Krylov, well, that one aged quite well. Nikita Krylov's still a contender in the division, and he submits him with a first-round guillotine. The Peruvian necktie over Jimmy Crute. He's an opportunistic submission guy. almost all of these submissions are generally early into the fight. Once he gasses out, I don't want to question his heart. He's a fighter. I'm not. He's obviously got bigger balls than I do. Plus, he's like 6'3". Obviously, he's got bigger shafts than I do probably as well. Whatever. I got kid Misha. Do you got a kid? Fuck, he's got that. And a really hot wife. Fucking Misha. Well, he's got to have something going against him. You know what? He's definitely got a bigger shaft than me because he's a big dude. I'll give him that. But I got bigger balls than him. Not because I'm a fighter, but because I've never been on steroids, right? So I think he can get the job done. Just he's going to have to get the job done early. I'm leaning towards Menifield inside the distance, but the safest way is these unders on the props.
All right, let's just get on with the next fight before we dive into that bag of worms that Cody just threw on us. But we're gonna go with this next fight here. It's a 185-pound bout. You want to talk about violence? This is the fight for you. We got Duško Todorovic going in as a -205 favorite. He's going up against the Beverly Hills Ninja, Jordan Wright, who's coming in at +175. Kind of easy to break this one down, right, Cody? But the one thing I want to do is give Jordan Wright the flowers that he deserves. Everybody thinks he's that meme guy, the can crusher that came into the contender series, beating a record of guys, I think, who came like 30%, not even maybe 5% win rate of the opponents that he beat before coming to the contender series. Gets starched by a baked Alexander Hernandez, who ended up testing positive for something. That happened within less than a minute, and everybody started memeing Jordan Wright after that. And he continues to build upon that meme culture by getting knocked out in the UFC the way that he's been doing. But like, let's give him his flowers. The guy's explosive. The guy's powerful. The guy's fast. And if he can land that power here against Todorovic, he could potentially find that chin and that win of his own. It's absolutely possible, especially in a fight like this where both guys throw big power. Both guys have shown an ability to get their lights turned out. Either guy is live in this spot. So I'm not picking Jordan Wright to win, but I'm just trying to give him some confidence, trying to allow people to open their mind a little bit more, thinking that he could be more live, not just putting Duško Todorovic into all your parlays and thinking that's the way to win money in this fight. The way to win money in this fight is what you'll be hearing from Cody very shortly, but also even just targeting the under 1.5. Like, I get that it's a little bit chalky now. Of course, Best Fight Odds doesn't have it up, but I believe it's hovering around that -200 range. Probably one of the better ways to play it, because we're going to expect this to be a car crash right off the jump, right? I know Jordan Wright took a grapple heavy approach in his second last fight, I believe it was, but still, I think that he knows that he could take advantage of the striking defense liabilities of Duško Todorovic, as you know, Duško likes to fight with his hands down a lot, and as long as you can get to his chin quicker than he can pull it back, you might likely be able to find that chin and put him out in this spot. And Jordan Wright is absolutely live to do so. Now, FanDuel currently is holding the under 1.5 at -260. So maybe more of a parlay piece than anything. But I think both guys can definitely find the finish early in the spot. It's without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, I'll leave Cody with the prop that he wants to drop for this one. I think it's the juiciest one to take, because I don't expect this fight to go long at all. No matter who wins, it's going to happen in round one. I will lean Duško ever so slightly, but do not count out Jordan Wright. That guy is nasty in the clinch. Go back and watch some of his fights. The guy just throws knees with absolute ill intent, has some beautiful elbows that he can land from those positions as well. And with somebody who has shown chin deficiencies, as Duško Todorovic has had, Jordan Wright is absolutely live to get the dub in this spot. But the under 1.5, as chalky as it is, probably my favorite prop for this matchup specifically, other than the one that Cody's about to drop for you guys. Cody, what do you think about this matchup, and what's that special prop that you're waiting to drop on these guys?
Yeah, so some books are offering the like what rounds are going to end in. And the first round, being it's the under on one single round, is like sitting at +460. So it's a big plus money price tag. And what you need is violence right off the hop, which I think you're going to get out of this. Jordan Wright at his best is a quick starter, a guy that likes to get the pounce on you, throws head kicks, throws big strikes, trained by Anthony Hardonk, once upon a time a UFC heavyweight in his own right, known for those big leg kicks. I feel like Jordan Wright is a work in progress because he's fought so many guys that were green, but he has an aggressive fight style. The Ike Villanueva fight is a cut stoppage, but then he follows that up with that win over Jamie Pickett, a KO victory over a guy that's shown to have pretty decent enough durability. I feel like Wright is capable of landing that big shot. Flip side to that, he can't exactly take much of a punch. I mean, we've seen him in the Joaquin Buckley fight, the Anthony Hernandez fight. He gets hit, he topples over. Last time out against Marc-Andre Barrios, oh, look at this. Yes, he works out with Anthony Hardonk, shout out, former UFC heavyweight. He also works out with, shout out, former UFC light heavyweight, Vladimir Matychenko. And he gets a couple takedowns.
Janitor.
but he sticks his head right into a Marc-Andre Barrios guillotine choke. And like, to me, that was super concerning. His wrestling looked a lot better, but his jiu-jitsu looked pretty soft. And Dusko Todorovic, to my knowledge, is a BJJ black belt. So I'm a little bit worried that even if he does get on top, he's getting caught with something. The main thing is, if he keeps it striking and gets a quick jump on him, he could legitimately knock out Dusko. If he gets taken down and Dusko ends up on top of him, he's likely getting finished by Dusko. In both scenarios, you're getting some straight-up violence out of this one. Dusko seems like that easy pick this week. Like, oh, everyone doesn't like Jordan Wright, and Dusko's going to beat him. But yeah, I'm seeing everything you're saying. He's a defensive liability. He keeps his chin way up in the air. He's someone that at times could take punches, but dude got hit like 104 times against Teddy Ash. 108 times, I think, against Teddy Ash on the Contender Series. The Puente Solariano fight, everything that he threw hit him, and everything completely dropped him to the ground. And then, of course, his last time against Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, that elbow completely rearranges him. I don't feel comfortable with him going in there with a big slugger like Jordan Wright that might bring that pressure for 3-4 minutes. So I think Jordan Wright is live, just like you're saying. And as much as I'm like, no way, I would never consider pulling the trigger on a Jordan Wright. It's a greasy underdog. This card's going to have some greasy underdogs coming through. And keep in mind something, my friend, okay? This is the Beverly Hills Ninja. Now, of course, you've seen the movie Beverly Hills Ninja. It wasn't like Haru was a fucking fast starter either. He sucked in the beginning. In fact, he sucked pretty much through 85% of the movie until they messed with his brother. And then he turned up. Guy got skill. This guy's very similar. Slow starter. Doesn't look like he's going to be all that much. But at 31 years old, quick, athletic, big body, I feel like he's still making improvements. And he's going to have his moment where he goes out there and saves Sally Jones. And the movie was actually pretty good, right? Rotten Tomatoes might tell you otherwise. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I think he's live as an underdog, but I think your best way of just attacking straight up violence, under 1.5, fight ends in 1 round. If you were going to take Wright, of course, you're going to take Wright by knockout, probably knockout in 1 round. You're juicing it up. And the flip side that, if you're taking Dusko, not faulting you, I think he can win this fight just as much as Wright can. But if you're taking him, don't play that straight up chalk. Take him inside the distance as well.
So are you saying that we should push Dusko Todorovic to mess with Anthony Hardonk or something like that? Like, is that what you're saying? Like, that is the key to Jordan Wright winning this fight?
The best way I can say it, I already used the analogy yesterday on Dogger Pass, but if you didn't watch Dogger Pass, I'll say it again because this is the best way I can say it, right? My buddy Brandon Vokey, he had that UFC video game and EA Sports MMA and shit. And like, he's a hemophiliac. He can't go outside and play sports. He'll die. He played the game all the time. As a result, it was fucking good, right? So I'd go over and we'd play and I'd lose every time. So eventually I'd be like, bro, no takedowns. You're not allowed to take me down anymore. We're just going to stand and bang. UFC video game, only stand and bang. He'd be like, okay. And then he'd kick my ass. So then to make it fair, I'd be like, bro, it's an only stand and bang. But you're not allowed to block. I can block and strike. You can't block. So he'd be like, okay. And then it was even. Because even though he was way better than me, had way more skill than me, he could not block, right? That was like the great difference maker. Even it up. At any point, I could land some shit because he wasn't blocking. That's Dusko Todorovic in a nutshell. Dude's got talent. Dude's got a lot of talent. Good cardio, good jiu-jitsu, decent striking. He doesn't block. How can you get away with that, man? You know what? You're going to end up being like Eddie Wineland. And what happened to him once his chin went? Same shit that's happened to Dusko. You can't just fight with your hands down. Hang out in the pocket. Oh my God. All I'm saying is guys like that do it to themselves. So when you get big favorite statuses, or when you get, in this case, it's like what? Minus 165, minus 170.
Minus 200.
Geez, what did it open at? Regardless, whenever you get minus 200 on a guy like Dusko that fights the style he does, you're setting yourself up for disaster. I like those durable guys that can take a beating if need be and persevere to the other side. If you've got, durability issues, if you're prone to get knocked out, if you're prone to get tired, get taken down and get submitted, it's hard to have a real strong investment in them. Jordan Wright might not be no good, but that no good, that explosive 3 minutes of coming at you, that might be all it takes.
CloudBet is holding a special prop for this matchup. Jordan Wright to land the first knockdown, plus 135, minus 160 on Dusko. Not bad. You know what I mean? Both guys are live to land a knockdown right off jump. And you're going to give me plus money on one of the guys? I'm okay with taking the plus money there, personally.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I feel like if Jordan Wright knocks down Dusko, he's going to knock out Dusko. So might as well just take the Wright by KO prop, right? But yeah, it's the kind of fight where you could get a knockdown on each side. Like Dusko, we've seen him in the Soriano fight. Like he went down and he got back up. And the first time I was like, damn, it looked like he regathered himself. And then there's like a short little shot would just rock him again. It was like, nah, he never got quite back. Like he never quite got with it. Like he was just perennially stunned the entire time. Now the Gregory Rodriguez fight, while he lasted the distance against a tough guy like RoboCop, yeah, that was a lot more grappling related. Again, he's a fine grappler. His grappling is not the problem. It's if he stands up with somebody and he allows them to hit him, I'm not feeling great about it. I can see him winning. For sure, I can see him winning. I can see Wright shocking people and cashing as the underdog. But again, in both scenarios, we hitting that under. We hitting that fight ends in the first round.
I love it. All right, let's get to this next fight. Very curious about your thoughts on this one. We got a flyweight bout between one of my favorite fighters in the UFC right now, Raw Dog Brandon Royval, going up against Askarov. In terms of odds, as you would expect, minus 240 on Askarov and plus 200 the return on Brandon Royval. Now, last time around that we saw Askarov in the cage, he fumbled his opportunity to get a title shot by losing to Kai Kara-France back in March. Could not get the takedowns. Kai Kara-France did a good job of keeping this fight upright, threatening with uppercuts and knees and using his movement very well, really landing the more meaningful and impactful shots against Askarov. Now, Askarov did have some success in that second round where I believe he controlled the majority of that round off the back or just on the back of Kai Kara-France. But Kai did a very good job of keeping him at distance. Now, I'm not expecting the same thing here from Royval to keep him at distance. This fight is going to get into the grappling realm. No matter what, if Askarov wants this fight on the ground, he will get this fight on the ground because Brandon Royval's takedown defense, no bueno. But that's where Royval pretty much thrives as well. He's very awkward and unorthodox off of his back. He's very active. Very active, throws up elbows. He makes his opponent work from on top. And one thing from Askarov that I've started to notice is like his control really isn't the greatest when he gets these guys on the ground. Opponents are able to get back to their feet. They're able to scramble, and they're making it very difficult for Askarov to establish that top control and that top pressure that he used to do in the ACB days. The one fight that kind of sold me on him was the Joseph Benavidez fight, in a sense where I thought that Benavidez was like one of the best scramblers the UFC had ever seen. But at that point in time, his age really started to catch up with him, right? That was the back end of Benavidez's career. And we saw Askarov beat him to every single position in every single scramble. That gave me some respect for Askarov. But then you see even performances after that where he really can't control his opponents. He's very much struggling to assert his dominance in those fights. Now, overall, he's likely the better fighter here, but it's always that wild card that, if anybody watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he's the Charlie Day character in the fight game because he just goes in there and just does wild shit. Yeah, I mean, he gets rocked by Kai Kara-France. He throws a spinning back elbow and he rocks Kai Kara-France himself and then eventually finds a submission. Like, he introduces crazy chaos that fighters have so much trouble keeping up with. And I think that Askarov might fall victim to that here, right? I don't feel comfortable with Askarov at minus 240. Sure, there is a realm where he might be able to get top position long enough for in certain spots where he can land some good shots from on top and look good for the judges. But I really think that Royval is going to make it very difficult for him to assert that top position, whether it's throwing up submissions, whether it's, diving for the leg when he's on bottom and he gets his feet on the hips of Askarov and pushes him up and then just tries to turn it into his own reversal or even get some control time of his own. I wouldn't even be surprised if Royval gets the back of Askarov and just backpacks him like Askarov did against Kai Kara-France. Main thing that I'm saying here, that's a bunch of information you guys took in from me. Anything can happen in a Brandon Royval fight, which is why I always think he's a live underdog at plus 200. I could see him getting some spots here. I can see him getting some decent enough control time to get the judge's decision in this fight. I haven't pulled the trigger on him yet. I'm considering it. When I first tape started this fight, he was down at plus 155. Now he's all the way up at plus 200. So maybe I might be have more of an incentive to take a shot on him here. But his decision prop at plus 600 is not too shabby either. I know he's a finish-based fighter, but Askarov's going to be a tough guy to put out. But he might be a guy that he could get some positions on where he could control him. So, I see some people talking about Royval submission. That could be live. That's plus 500. Royval by decision, like I said, is around plus 600. I'm gonna lean decision just a smidge, but man, this is a wild fight. I could completely understand why people are taking a plus 200 shot here on Royval. So prediction will be Royval. I'm going to say Royval by decision, but if you like him at all, just take the plus 200. There's no need to get mixed up with props in this matchup, especially if you like the underdog. Cody, Do you think my fandom of Raw Dog is coming into my analysis here, or do you think he's a live underdog as well?
Oh, dude, listen, he's a fan favorite. The way he goes out, and his crazy fight style. You mentioned the Kai Kara-France fight, where it's just lunatic. They both drop each other. He grabs a submission win. The fight with Brandon Moreno, I thought he looked pretty good in the first little bit, and then eventually taken down, dislocates his shoulder. He always has these spots against people, but there's also a lot of negativity there. The Rogerio Baltrin fight, he got taken out 8 times and got controlled for just under 8 minutes in that fight. Most people didn't think he won. I did because I had him. But bro, that was not a good fight at all, man. He kept giving up his back. He was not nearly as strong as Baltrin. There was issues there. The Matt Schnell fight, Matt Schnell had him knocked out standing. Bad mistake from Schnell to jump on top of him on the ground, right? But his chin's not great. He's been dropped a whole lot of times. His striking is very erratic. His style is crazy. I think he's prone to getting hurt in there. He's prone to getting caught in bad spots. I don't know. He could win a fight on any given night, absolutely. But there's not enough for me to be like, yeah, I got faith in this guy. I got confidence in this guy. Everybody that's fighting him is racking up multiple takedowns. I see no reason to believe why Askarov couldn't do quite literally the exact same thing, right? He's fought in better wrestlers than this before. You mentioned Joseph Benavidez. He had taken him down 5 times. He took him down Brandon Moreno 3 times. He has a win over Alexander Pantoja. Pantoja's grappling, good, very good, better than Brandon Royval. He proved in that fight. It was easily took his back in the second round and choked him out with a rear naked choke. I feel like Askarov's operating on a slightly higher level. So to me, Askarov can get takedowns whenever he wants. If he wants the takedown, it's going to be there. Now, Brandon Royval's throwing submissions up off his back. Yeah, but it's 2022, man. How many guys throw up submissions off their back and catch it clean over a guy that, by the way, never been submitted, fought in guys in the division like Brandon Moreno, Alexander Pantoja, Joseph Benavidez, never been submitted by those guys. You're just going to catch him with a triangle off your back, with an armbar off your back, a little guillotine choke? Maybe. It's MMA. Anything can happen. I think we all know that. But is that likely? I don't think so, man. Askarov is very technical. I think the 90% of his pro wins are that are inside the distance are all submission. He's more of a submission guy. He's got a slick submission game. And I think this will be grappler versus grappler, only Askarov's going to be the one on top of him. So I think Askarov wins. That being said, it could be similar to the Bontrine fight, whereas one guy's getting the takedowns, the other guy is throwing up submissions. He doesn't have to stick them. You throw them up. You throw short elbows. You do stuff. Fight gets back standing. You scramble, you get back up. You land something big. You get taken back down again. You could grease out a controversial close decision by just doing more off of your back. But I just got to go with common thinking. And common thinking is guy on top generally gets the decision. And that's the same thing with Askarov. Far superior wrestling, good enough submission defense. Should just rinse and repeat and rack up takedowns on him. So that's where I decided to go.
Fight goes to decision, -110. Not too bad of a spot, especially considering, I think we're breaking this down pretty much similarly in the fact that this will likely take place on the ground, but it's going to come down to who does more in those situations. I don't know if the finish will transpire. But
yeah, I thought about taking the Askarov by decision at +125 as one of my top plays this week. My concern is, again, when you watch, dude, almost all of them, right? The Tim Elliott fight, it's there's some sticky spots. The Kai Kara-France fight, he gets dropped twice. The Brandon Moreno fight, he dislocates his shoulder. The Pantoja fight, he gets choked out early in the second. The Bontrine fight, Bontrine's not a finisher. He just ragdolled him around there, but that one's not indicative of your durability got any better. And then the Matt Schnell fight, dude, he almost got knocked out 30 seconds into the fight. He has got durability issues 100%. And whereas Askarov's got 6 fights in the UFC, they're all by decision. Common thinking is it's going to be a decision. Common thinking is the reason I had Tisha Torres by decision over Sam Hughes. And let me tell you, shit just sometimes happens. Yeah. This could be one of them. It's not that Askarov is suddenly a great finisher. It's Royval finds a way to lose inside the distance most of the time. So I don't know. Take it with what you will. That's the reason I didn't go higher on the Askarov by decision at +125. I think I would just take, Askarov money line is pretty big as it is. If you want to juice this thing up a little bit, I don't know. It's sticky. But what you said, fight goes the distance. I don't mind that because it's only a slightly worse price than the Askarov by decision, and it covers you the other side in case you get screwed on a split. So I prefer that, actually. That would be my best prop.
Your synopsis of like the quick Brandon Royval fights that you just had, like, it's the perfect description of how this guy fights. It's just fucking chaotic. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen sometimes. So we'll see how it goes with Askarov this time around.
The only thing crazier than his style, and that's why he's got the name Raw Dog, because it's a bad idea. Take it from a guy that just had a kid, man. Bad idea. It's dangerous being a Raw Dog. And Brandon Royval, he takes those risks. So good on him. But hopefully not this Saturday, because I wouldn't mind cashing an Askarov ticket.
All right, let's get to the co-main event now. It's another Factory X Muay Thai product similar to Brandon Royval. This one takes place in the bantamweight division, and the reason that the weight class is very important for this matchup is because it's going to be the bantamweight debut of veteran Cub Swanson, who turns 39 next month. He's going up against, can we still call Jonathan Martinez a prospect? He's had, a wealth of experience inside the UFC now, but he's definitely the younger of the two. We got minus 205 on the Dragon, Jonathan Martinez, and plus 175 on Cub Swanson. Now, Jonathan Martinez has always been one of my favorite fighters to back, even at a chalky price. I don't mind paying minus 200 on him because he's somewhat of a reliable fighter. We know what we're going to get out of him. Combination striking, stay safe on the outside, establishes his leg kicks, whether it's to the body or to the head, and that allows him to kind of just work and operate at that range that he needs to, so he can throw his combinations. We saw a couple of takedowns out of him in his last fight against Vince Morales, although I think he only chalked up about 40 seconds of control time that night. Like, Morales was able to get back to his feet pretty quickly, but I think that's just trying to show a new wrinkle in his game, right? Try to show the development in his game, but I think he would be better served just sticking with his bread and butter, and that's his striking. That's where he does his best work. Now, he's not really the biggest puncher, right? He's not really finishing anybody. It's very tough. Like, the guys that he is finishing, Frankie Saenz, who's well beyond his peak years at that point in time, and then he finished that Chinese guy who, didn't really have the longest UFC career either. Cub Swanson, for some reason, I feel like there's this narrative out there that he's like a chinny and washed fighter, maybe more washed than chinny, but still a competitive guy. Like, he hasn't really been put out. Like, when he loses, he's losing via body kick to Giga Chikadze, or he's losing via submission to Brian Ortega. Like, that's the way he's losing. I can't see a round where Martinez goes out there and puts a punch on him or a kick on him that's going to put Cub Swanson out. Maybe the drop down in weight could make that a little bit harder for Cub Swanson to take. Like, it might be more viable for Martinez to get a finish because of that weight cut. But I think that we'll see the veteran in Cub Swanson. I'm sure he's done the test cuts. I'm sure he's done everything that's required possible to make this a proper cut for him to 135 pounds. The guy's a veteran. He's coming off a win. Why would he go down to 135 pounds if he didn't think he can confidently do it, right? Not similar to Misha Sirkanov, who we talked about earlier, who was just on loss after loss after loss, looking for another way to change things up by going down a weight class. Cub is doing it for a different reason. Now, in terms of the striking, Cub a little bit more unorthodox than Jonathan Martinez, but he has some sneaky power as well, which he showcased in his last two wins, right? Obviously starches Darren Elkins, doesn't even look competitive from the jump, and then he beats Daniel Pineda as well by finish. Jonathan Martinez, although I believe his only loss via finish in the UFC was to Davey Grant, has shown some durability issues, right? Alejandro Perez hurt him on a couple occasions. We saw some great composure from Martinez to stay in that fight and obviously win that fight. But like, it's starting to get sketchier and sketchier betting Jonathan Martinez as a big favorite. And now he's going up, in my opinion, one of his stiffest tests to date, his most experienced test to date in Cub Swanson. Cub has that weird striking style where he could potentially find that shin of Jonathan Martinez and make him pay for it. And considering this seeming newfound confidence that Cub Swanson has been fighting with over his last 4 fights, in which he's a 3-1 record that he has, he might be willing to throw those bungalows and throw those bricks and maybe try to find that chin of Jonathan Martinez, which I think he can do. Metrically speaking, these guys are exactly the same, right? They have the same height, same reach. Jonathan Martinez is another guy who struggles to make the 135-pound weight class as well. So that might be another storyline that we should look at for the weigh-ins tomorrow. But skill-wise, I think Cub has all the skills in the world still at this age to compete against a guy like Jonathan Martinez and possibly find that knockout and get the win and get his hand raised here. So I like the money line. I'm going to wait until the weigh-ins tomorrow to make sure, I'm not expecting him to have like a smile on his face and be full of joy as he's stepping on the scale, but I just want to see what we are getting from him as he steps on the scale. But if I like what I'm seeing there, I'll likely take a shot on his money line. But I've already sprinkled his KO prop, which is plus 500. I think that line is mispriced considering how successful I think he can be in fighting that chin of Jonathan Martinez, who, again, has shown durability issues. And although only knocked out once, he has been hurt in multiple fights in the past. And Cub Swanson is another guy that can replicate that. So give me the veteran here. I don't care that he's creeping up on 40 years old. I think he can find that chin of Jonathan Martinez and put him out. Plus 500 KO. Sign me up. Cody, am I jacking off Cub Swanson a little bit too much here, or do you think he has a shot to pull off the upset too?
Yeah, he's another legend like Rafael Assuncao. Like, he never got to that title fight, but it's like gangster, fought all the best guys. And I think he's got one last hurrah left in him. Could potentially pull it off with Jonathan Martinez. A lot of the focus is on Cub Swanson's weight cut. Can Cub Swanson make 135 pounds? Here's my concern. Can Jonathan Martinez make 135 pounds? Guy's not a good weight cutter, man. Not a good weight cutter. You brought up the Frankie Saenz fight. That's the best he's ever looked, I thought. He missed weight by 5 pounds for that fight. Came in at 140 and a half. Red flag. Next fight against Thomas Almeida, and you look good in that fight, is at 145. He actually came in at 146. Davey Grant goes back to 135. First round looked decent. Second round, Grant clips him, puts the pressure on him, knocks him out. Is that Jonathan Martinez has a bad chin? Is that Jonathan Martinez had a bad weight cut? He missed weight in a prior fight by almost 5 pounds. Bad indication. Now his return to 35 after the Almeida fight, and he's knocked out, cause for concern. Now you'll see a tabology will tell you he had 3 canceled fights. But if you check that Marcel Rojo fight, you'll see Martinez withdraws due to a botched weight cut. Botched weight cut is the reason why he pulled out of the Marcel Rojo fight. So now you've got a precedent here. You missed weight against Frankie Saenz pretty bad. You've pulled out of a fight during fight week because you're having a bad weight cut. You got knocked out the last time you made 135. Then he beats that Lavishvili, took the fight on like a week's notice at 35. But then he fights Alejandro Perez at 145 pounds. Now, Alejandro Perez has never fought in the UFC at 145. He's a career 35er. And Martinez is supposed to be a 35er. His last fight against Lavishvili was at 35. Why is he going back to 145 pounds? Because that's where he feels the best. Now, Alejandro Perez drops him in the first round. He was kind of off balance. Like, he threw a knee up the middle and he got conked with an overhand. But he almost got saved by the bell, dude. Like, if that round still goes, he's got Perez on top of him raining down punishment, whereas the bell rings and he's able to get up and clear his head. So part of me is like, is the guy compromised? Is his chin great? Is he going to drop down to 135? Is he going to have another botched weight cut? He's not a prospect anymore, but he is 28 years old. He is getting a little bit bigger. He is getting a little bit older. He is still going to fill in that frame. I got a nagging suspicion that if he has a bad weight cut and Cub safely makes the weight and Cub makes this a war and Cub touches his chin, I think he knocks him out. I think he can knock him out, absolutely. Now, here's the great thing about Cub Swanson. Unless your name's Giga Chikats, who in the last 5 years has fought Cub Swanson and come out unscathed? You know, Darren Elkins got knocked out. Daniel Pineda, it was a beating through the minute and 52 into the second round. Like, that fight went less than 7 minutes, and Cub dropped him twice, landed already good amount. Kron Gracie, 135 significant strikes landed on Kron Gracie. Shane Burgos, 129 significant strikes landed on Shane Burgos. You had better hope you catch him early with a submission or hurt him to the body like Giga Chikats. Because if you don't, Cub gets into wars. That's what he's known for. He's Killer Cub. He's got a reputation. He's won Fight of the Year awards. He's the man. He will bring the pain. And in Jonathan Martinez's case, he doesn't got that big power to just turn the lights off. And he doesn't have any submission ability to just submit him. So chances are he's going to get in a dragged out brawl. And if that's the case, I think Cub lands something on him. So listen, I'm not faulting you for the Cub Swanson. I think if you want to juice it up, obviously you can say Cub Swanson by knockout. It might catch him. Maybe he just wins a couple of the decisions. If anything, I feel like he's going to knock him. But I'm kind of going with this fight ain't going to decision. Fight doesn't go the distance as of sitting at about even money. I know Martinez isn't a big finishing guy, but he does have nasty leg kicks. And I feel like with Cub on a bad weight cut, 38 years old, new weight class, maybe if you worked out his leg, you'd really hurt him, batter him, immobilize him, maybe catch him something. Maybe he throws a knee up the middle, maybe. But I just feel like with Cub Swanson at this point, it's going to be kill or be killed. He's going to come forward, he's going to get the job done, or he's going to die trying. His fights are known for entertainment, action-packed, back and forth. And with Martinez, when he gets into back and forth, those are the fights he loses. He needs one-way traffic. He needs to be the hammer the entire way through. Even the Andre Ewell fight, people are like, man, robbery. It's like, man, he got outstruck like 80-60. What do you want? Like, he's just walking into punches the whole time. Against a guy like Cub that's got the volume, I think it's possible. He's an aged veteran. I hate backing those aged veterans, but I would be lying if I said that Cub Swanson's a write-off this week. I do think he's got a legitimate chance, but I'm going to go with fight doesn't go the distance to even money as my best play.
I like it. I'm glad that we're all kind of on the same page there. And I'm glad that you kind of hammered home the point more about Cub kind of thriving in wars and dragging fights into wars, because I don't think that's where Jonathan Martinez is comfortable at all. And I think that's where we'll see Cub absolutely thrive in this spot. So hopefully he comes through for the good guys. We'll see how it goes. All right. Appreciate the 110 live viewers that we have on this Thursday evening. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below if you haven't already, because I'm taking a peek at it, guys, and we're less than 50% of likes compared to live views, and that's no bueno for me. Let's get that up there if we can. Appreciate everybody that's checking out the content and hanging with us on this Thursday evening as well. Also, make sure you guys check out the All-Stars app. Link is in the description below to download it. It's free. Nothing you got to pay for, no paywalls, none of that stuff. Just hit that download and you can customize your feed as much as you want. And yeah, I promise you likely won't be using any other apps to get your MMA news or even look up odds as well, as they have a great platform for that too. So make sure you guys please check that out. All right, Cody, let's get to this flyweight main event. Again, a lot of people were banging the drum to be like, hey, Askarov and Royval should be the main event. But after doing a little bit of digging, I kind of understand why they ended up on this. So main event, we got the Mexican Alexa Grasso coming in as a minus 225 favorite. She's going up against the Brazilian Viviane Araujo, who's coming in at plus 190. And the reason I believe that they decided to make this the main event is they're trying to get that extra Alexa Grasso push, right? She's on a 3-fight winning streak. They're looking for contenders at flyweight. She might be the next one, especially if she's able to get a win here. And I think they're still trying to crack into that Mexican market, Cody. Remember when they expected Cain Velasquez to be the guy for them, and they expected even Galloto Perez to be the guy for them as well? Nobody has really been able to smash into the Mexican market.
And Brandon Moreno, you want to use the title.
Well, Brandon Moreno too. Actually, yeah, nowadays, they're finally actually getting that steam that they were hoping to get with Kane from back in the day. But I think Alexa Grasso is another name they can add to Brandon Moreno to be that big Mexican star that they need to, have more fans from there and have more fighters come out from there that they can really market towards that South American community, especially Mexico specifically. And Alexa Grasso has all the makings of being a legit star, considering her skill set, which I think is top notch, and where she's ranked right now. She is maybe a fight away from a title shot, especially considering that Valentina has pretty much scrubbed out the rest of the top 5 to top 10 of that division. Although, if they made Tyler Santos rematch, I'd definitely watch that fight, because that's the closest fight she's had outside of an Amanda Nunes fight.
Well, yeah, let's watch a Tyler Santos rematch. People are clamoring for that.
Hey, competitive-wise, that was a close fight. Tyler Santos probably won that fight too. Come on, Cody.
You know what? Close fight, but just like not a great fight. I think the best
marketing-wise, you're right. Marketing-wise, no, you're absolutely right. It's no Glover Teixeira versus Yuri Prohaska by any means, but in terms of seeing Valentina actually go up against some adversity and possibly even have lost that fight, that's the marketing I was expecting. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think they're like, Valentina, you're going to go to 135 and fight Amanda Nunes because we've got nothing else to run back there. Maybe they do a trilogy match with Juliana Pena. But listen, I know she won the first fight, but like based on the second fight, do people want to see that one run back? She got dropped 17 times. Like well, she broke the punch stats. They were like, yeah, it doesn't actually, it's only double digits. Like I can't fill in a triple digit knockdown. I don't know. I would say the best case for someone like Grasso is allow Valentina to vacate, and then you're going to need a new face for the division, right? And then, perfectly hanging in the wings.
I like it. And I think that this is a good matchup for her to, position herself in that spot as well, stylistically speaking. Now, she's a great striker, uses her movement very well, has some good output, and she's very active off of her back. I mean, I remember watching back, I believe it was the Macy Barber fight where Barber gets into the ground, but Alexa is actively working to throw up submissions. She's actively working to get her feet on the hips, push Barber off her and get back to her feet. And I love that about a fighter. I love a fighter that just does not settle on the mat at all. Like they don't even take a breath like, oh, okay, I got taken down. Let me breathe through this. And then I'll try to figure out my way to work back to the feet. Grasso's like, no, I'm taken down. That means I'm in a bad position. The judges are probably not liking what they're seeing from my perspective. Let me get back to my feet, or at least try to pull up a submission that I can, make my opponent work, essentially. And I think that's what we're going to get here. Just onslaught of combination striking. Her chin looks great. She has good striking defense as well, in my opinion. And Araujo, she'll likely be live for the first maybe round and a half or so, but she has shown instances where she starts to fall off, where her gas thing starts to get the better of her. Now, not to the point of a Derek Lewis hands on knees hold over or anything like that, but still to the point where I feel like Alexa Grasso could take advantage of that and just continue to put the pressure on there, maybe put the pedal to the metal. Training at altitude and all that will definitely help her in a spot like this. And I think that she'll be able to turn on those burners in the championship and main event rounds, and either really start to take over and win a decision victory, or even finish Araujo probably in the 4th or 5th round. The prop that I'm liking the most, and this is courtesy of FanDuel, is the round 4, round 5 decision prop, where you can bet on all three of those combined, and it comes out to minus 115. It's pretty much even money rather than the minus 230 that you're going to be paying on the money line. I would be slightly surprised if she pulls off a victory within the first 3 rounds, but the deeper this fight goes, the higher chances I'm definitely giving Grasso. And lastly, also a solid live betting spot that you can take on Grasso, because there are spots that Araujo could take advantage of her in this fight early, right? She has big power in her hands. She has a decent enough grappling game as well, where she might be able to find some success, and you might be able to get Grasso like minus 150, minus 140 going into the later rounds. You might be able to pull the trigger there then too. But I do like Grasso here. I loved her money line at minus 200. I still love her money line at minus 230. I just think she's way more skilled and has way more tools and the better cardio here against a girl like Viviane Araujo. So let's go Grasso, round 4 or 5 decision, but specific prop if people don't have access to the round 4 or 5 decision, just by decision, which I think is sitting around plus 120. Because I mean, I don't want to shit on Araujo's gas tank too much. So I might be over exaggerating it here a little bit, but I think that Grasso's full body of work will be way more than what Viviane could do over 25 minutes. So let's go Grasso decision plus 120. What are you thinking here, Cody? Am I too high on Grasso, or is Araujo good enough here to get the upset?
No, I gotta agree with you and Alfred. The entire time you're talking about Grasso, Alfred's behind you. He's like, yeah, man, he's barking in the background, giving you support. And then as soon as you start talking about Araujo, he just went quiet all of a sudden. So I gotta go with that as well. Listen, it's tough for me. Just had a daughter, and now we got a women's main event. And then last week or 2 weeks ago, we had women's main event. Mackenzie Dern, same thing. You got this grappling. It's like, oh, man, the fight hits the ground. Like, it's a 5-round fight. It's who's going to be able to fight for the 25 minutes, who's going to be able to land them strikes. That was a weird fight to score anyways, but I got to go with Grasso. I know the favorite lost the last time at Dern. I got to go with Grasso to redeem and to get the job done. Narrative aside, I know what you're saying. UFC's probably looking to give her a marketing push, and I do agree with that. I think she's talented. She's young. She's getting better. And I think that this is a good enough fight for her. I really think that the 5 rounds, that's going to be the key here. I mean, you got someone in Viviane Araujo that cardio problems or not, is that she's never fought into the 5th round before. And I think a lot of her game is based on that big strength early. A lot of her fights, she looks good early. And then it's not that she's necessarily fatiguing. It's that she coasts after she banks a couple early rounds. I don't think you're going to be able to do that against Grasso. Obviously, someone who's spent a lot of time working on her own grappling game, but also just probably figures to have that striking advantage with the volume. Volume's going to be big key to me. Viviane Araujo, as talented as she is, she's very low on the volume count. And I think someone like Grasso, especially over 25 minutes, will slightly pull ahead. When you look at Viviane Araujo, because we can only really judge her on these 3-round fights, but the Alexis Davis fight, she flat out gassed in the 3rd round, lost the 3rd round in all 3 judges' scorecards, and overall got outstruck 68-67 against Alexis Davis. That was a bad 3rd round. The Jessica I fight, she flat out gasses out in the 3rd round after having a good opening frame, and definitely has cardio issues, got outstruck 98-56. The Montana De La Rosa fight, she gasses out in the 3rd round, loses the 3rd round to Montana De La Rosa, got handily outstruck in the 3rd round to Montana De La Rosa, and officially got outstruck in the fight 85-82 to Montana De La Rosa. That's 3 straight fights where she's actually been outstruck by her opponent all 3 times. And 3 straight fights where you can noticeably see her body language changing and her fatiguing as the fight goes on. Now she beats Roxanne Modafferi. Well, that one's kind of like one of those, it don't take much. So she looked good there. Caitlin Chookagian fight, she got, Caitlin Chookagian's a very difficult opponent. I thought she looked better in that fight, but all the same, you saw that there was levels to that, and she wasn't quite there. And then the Andrea Lee fight, her last time out, Andrea Lee knocked her down, had some early success, and then wouldn't you know it, tired out herself and allowed Vivi to take over. She's talented, she's strong, she's physical, she's got all that. But she's also 35 years old. I don't think she's going to make a whole lot of overall improvements to her game, especially not to her cardio. So this being a 5-round, it's very key to me. I would say minus 220 for Grasso straight up. Don't like it. But that price will improve after the first round, maybe even the first round and a half. I see Vivian Arroyo being tough early. And same thing with Valentina Shevchenko. Yeah, her last fight. It's like, oh man, could you have gotten a much better price on her after a round or two? For sure. Look at the Jennifer Maia fight. Could you have gotten a much better price on her after the first round? Yeah, because Jennifer Maia actually won the first round there. Yeah, it's like sometimes you just got to let the fight marinate, and then the world-class champion will overtake in those later rounds. I don't think Grasso's yet a world-class championship material fighter. However, I do think that those 4th and 5th round are going to be crucial for her. She won't be down 0-3 going into 4 and 5. Worst case for us, she's down 2-1. And I think she's going to persevere in those late rounds, get the volume, much bigger volume. Takedown defense, hopefully good enough to stuff more of the takedowns more often than not. If you do get taken down, get back up and just continuously make Vivi work. And if you do that, I think she's going to come away with the decision victory. So I'm going to go with fight goes the distance, whatever. The price is not on that is not very good. But Alexa Grasso by decision, you can get a pretty good price tag.
Fight goes to decision, currently hanging around minus 200, which is not that bad considering women's MMA standard. But
5 rounds is the only thing. But you're right. I mean, this seems like it's earmarked to probably go 15 minutes. Just looking at the card, Piero Rodriguez, Sam Hughes is about minus 250 to go to the distance. Nick Maximov, Jacob Malkoon's about minus 250 to go to the distance. This is minus 200, but it's the extra 10 minutes that they got to go in there and fight, right? So I had Grasso against Joanne Calderwood her last time out, but like I didn't think it was going to go down like that. She subs her like that. Like what?
Yeah.
Calderwood's kind of seen better days and has lackluster submission defense. I don't think Vivian Arroyo for 35. She's not over the hill. She's not falling apart. She's not regressing. I just don't think that she's making a colossal amount of improvements fight to fight. Whereas with Grasso, there's no denying she's making improvements. The Barber fight, yeah, okay, takedown defense looks soft there. 3rd round didn't look great. She almost caught her with a rear naked choke. Her grappling looked a lot better. You do see those improvements out of her. And of course, training in Mexico City, mile high in the air. That's really going to help come these 5-round fight situations. So hopefully she's able to get the job done down the stretch.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's get to our 3 best prop bets, and then we'll wrap this bad boy up. I'll kick it off as I usually do. And whoops, there we go. All right, first one. I'm going to be going with Jacob Malkoon via decision, plus 200. I'm expecting this to be a closely contested grappling matchup between these two guys. I think Malkoon has just shown a tad more aggressiveness, a tad more pressure, and I think that could ultimately be the difference maker in this matchup. Once this fight does hit the ground, it will be 50-50 and it'll be a toss-up, but I think just that extra gear that we see from Malkoon will be the difference maker in this matchup. But whether you take his money line or this decision prop, I think you'll be cashing that ticket regardless. Next up, I'm going to go with Swanson via KO, plus 500, just as me and Cody laid out. He likes to drag fights into wars. I don't think Martinez is comfortable in those spots, and that's how I think we'll see Swanson really start to thrive. So give me that Swanson KO plus 500. And lastly, I'm going to go with that main event prop that I dropped for you guys. It's only available on a couple books, but Grasso round 4, round 5 decision is minus 115. If you're able to get access to that, I think that's a great bet. Even if you just take her decision prop at plus 120, I think that's probably the best like traditional prop that you can bet on. But I think there is possible finishing opportunities for her in round 4 and 5. And in terms of those specific, like if you just want to bet those by themselves, Grasso round 4 plus 1,800, Grasso round 5 plus 2,200. I think they're worth a little bit of a sprinkle, and hopefully she cashes it for us. But there you guys go. 3 of mine. Cody, let's get to yours.
Yeah, we're going to start off with a little decision prop. We got Victor Henry coming in by decision at plus 125. Again, I think he has got superior volume. Takedown defense good enough to keep the fight standing. He should be able to rack up some numbers anyways against Rafael Assuncao. I'm just hoping Assuncau's chin's not all the way gone and he's able to take said beating for the 15 minutes, and Victor Henry's going to cash that decision to get up plus 125. Moving on from that, we are going to hit up I know this one's probably not the most popular, but I like that price tag, plus 210. Jackson versus Pete Rodriguez to get that over 1.5 rounds. Mike Jackson's just like the laughing stock of MMA. Oh, man, he's a photographer. He's not a real fighter. He's fighting CM Punk and Mickey Gall. All that stuff might be true, but what he showed me against Dean Barry is that he's not a complete walkover. Striking is his domain, and his cardio is good enough, and his evasiveness is good enough to maybe just survive a little bit. Rodriguez has done the same thing every single time. Smoke you out of there in the first round. Is he going to do that here? Entirely possible. If he doesn't, and Jackson fights the fight that he wants, he's going to be evading him the entire time. And I think there's some credit to that. So plus 105, the over 1.5 at plus 210, to me, it's a good price tag. Finally, let's go for a big one here. And to me, again, I mean, it's going to be chaotic, but Todorovic versus Jordan Wright fight ends in round 1, or essentially the under 1 round. Plus 460. It's a big price tag. Todorovic is known to get finished quick. He keeps his chin weight up in the air, can't take a great punch, but he's got some offensive power. Bad defense, good offense. Jordan Wright, no defense, but the only thing he might have a little smidget of is aggressive, big guy, power punching. If he tries to get that quick hop on him, I think his coaches are going to tell him, try to get a quick hop on this guy, catch him going off a slow start. I could see him getting the job done. That one coming in at plus 460. If for whatever you were thinking to yourself, dude, I'm not feeling this Mike Jackson thing whatsoever. It's a freak show fight. Not the kind of thing I'd want to have any money on. Scrap it. Scrap it and go with Tatsuro Tara by plus 325, plus 350 by submission. Again, this guy's a potent finisher. He's coming off a decision win, and that's the reason you're getting such a good plus money price tag on something like a submission prop when he's a favored submission artist. So I think that there are a couple good spots on this card, good plus money on this card, and then overall it is considered a lower level fight night, but there's at least 4 or 5 good money line favorites as well that you should be able to parlay together. And overall, it's a Saturday afternoon. Card starts at 4 o'clock. Should be an enjoyable afternoon unless you got a crying baby in your ear.
There you guys go. 3 best prop bets from both me and Cody. Just throwing it out there. So that plus 460 for the fight end in round 1. I'm seeing it on Bet Rivers. I'm not sure which other books are showing that. I just checked on FanDuel real quick. Fight to not start round 2 is hanging around minus 120, minus 130. So it might be a special for Bet Rivers. If you have it, take advantage of it. Probably the best way to go about it.
You know what? Very possible, because again, with my book Bovada, they're slow to releasing these props. Plus, I don't know, they've been such dicks to me lately. Whatever. Books never really want to be your friend ultimately. No. But anyways, it did seem like a very high price to me in that 460, considering this thing's very likely to end in 1 round. If you felt strongly about either side of it, maybe you would bet the either side to finish it in 1 round. But yeah, I think Paul Shaughnessy was all over this yesterday. He likes really the under 1.5. I would agree and take that under 1.5. And I think that this is a card as well between some of those decision props we talked about that are hitting at that minus 250 range, a Nick Maximov type of example, a Piero Rodriguez type of example. You could parlay some of those with these like fight, don't go the distance and these complete violence matches. Yeah, I think that there's got enough pick and choose spots that you should be able to tie something together.
There you guys go. All right. That's pretty much a wrap on the show. I'll give Cody one last chance here to say anything he wants to say on the back end, and then I'll get us out of here. Cody, what do you got for the fans?
Fuck all, bro. That's about it. I mean, keeping busy, keeping on the grind. So, I'd like to go out there and have a good Saturday night, get back in the win column, hit some props as well. And, yeah, that's it, right? Onwards and on. What's the expression? Onward, upwards and onwards? Upwards and onwards. There we go. Yeah, that's all we're doing, right? Of course, we put out the PRP, but now I think I'm gonna have like the Cami College Fund play, which is something a little safe. Build up that bankroll. Of course, Cami's 1/8 Native American, so she doesn't actually have to pay for college. Ain't that some shit? I know. Marry a Native American person. That is the real takeaway that you can have from this show. And I'll leave you with that. So for the 100 plus people that took their time out of their Thursday night, thank you. Much appreciated. We always do like to see the support. And, of course, with the All-Star giving us a sweet platform, letting us do our thing. Thanks to everybody.
There you guys go. All right. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter as well. Myself at MMALOTN, Cody at CJ Saftic on Twitter. And you guys can follow us there for all of our takes and funny tweets that we like to put out every now and then, as well as our commentary during the fights as well. We like to tweet every now and then as well. So please show us some support over there. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week for the big UFC 280 card. It is my birthday card as well. Literally on my birthday, my 31st birthday, will be UFC 280. And what better gift than getting fights that start at 10 a.m. and then giving us a banger card like UFC 280 as well. Me and Cody will be breaking it down for you guys Thursday, just around 5 p.m. Eastern as our normal time. But we'll obviously tweet on that time. So hopefully we see you guys then. Until then, good luck on your bets this weekend. And hope we propped you up properly and we can put some extra money in your pockets this weekend. Good luck, folks.